Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Variety on this Saturday edition of Classic Radio Theater with the CBS Radio Workshop and Subways Are for Sleeping, Mr. Keen Tracer of Lost Persons, and the case of the strange murder of Carrie Ellis, and a pair from Jack Webb, an episode, of course, of Dragnet, and an episode of Pat Novak for Hire before he became Joe Friday, and we'll wrap it all up with an episode of Claudia. That's what's coming up on this Saturday, 3rd day of August, 215th day, 16th day of the year, 150 days remaining. Happy birthday to Jay North. You know who that is. You don't? I'll tell you in a moment. Columbus set sail from Palos, Spain on this date in 1492. Germany declared war on France in 1914 in the First World War. Calvin Coolidge sworn in as President 30 on this date in 1923 following the death of Warren G. Harding. In 1958, the nuclear-powered submarine Nautilus became the first vessel to cross the North Pole underwater. In 1965, President Johnson doubled down on his commitment to the Vietnam War.
Why don't people concern themselves something with a country that's trying to maintain her independence from aggression, that's being invaded? Now, America wins the wars that she undertakes, make no mistake about it. And we have declared war on ignorance and illiteracy. We have declared war on poverty. We have declared war on disease. And we have declared war on tyranny and aggression.
Johnson making those remarks in a speech to the International Platform Association upon receiving the association's annual award. In 1981, U.S. air traffic controllers went on strike.
I must tell those who failed to report for duty this morning, they are in violation of the law, and if they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated.
President Reagan then fired 11,000 air traffic controllers 5 days later. In 1984, Mary Lou Retton won the all-around gymnastics gold medal with a perfect 10 on the balance beam.
Mary Lou Retton is just about...
Perfect ball! Oh, wow! Beautiful straight legs high, full twist, and she stuck it, and she's 4 feet further away from that horse than any gymnast in this meet. I'm telling you, she's going to get a 10. If she does, she is going to be the Olympic all-around champion. Mary Lou Retton, what a phenomenal first vault. And it's a 10, which gives her a 79.175, and she beats Ekaterina Szabo.
Retton scooped 5 medals at the 1984 Olympics in L.A., more than any other athlete. Her success on home soil transformed her into a true American sports icon. In 1987, a 22-cent stamp honoring author William Faulkner issued its first-day cancellation held at Oxford, Mississippi, where Faulkner had served as postmaster from 1921 until his resignation in 1924, following accusations of negligence. In 1987, the Iran-Contra hearings ended.
It is a story of how a great nation betrayed the principles which have made it great and thereby became hostage to hostage takers. And sadly, once the unsound policies began to unravel, it became a story of a cover-up, of shredding and altering of the historical record, and of a fall guy plan suitable for a grade B movie, not a great power.
Hawaii Senator Daniel Inouye, a Democrat, the chairman of the Senate Select Committee investigating the Iran-Contra scandal, he passed away in 2012 at the age of 88. 2004 on this date, the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty reopened after being closed since the September 11 attacks in 2001. In 2019, 23 people killed, 23 injured in a shooting in El Paso, Texas. Passing away on this date, comedian Lenny Bruce, Morticia Addams in the Addams Family TV show Carolyn Jones, also a fine actress before that, actress Ida Lupino, singer-songwriter Roger Voudouris, Harry Carey's son Skip Carey passing away on this date, Mr. Belvedere, Christopher Hewitt, and the man who sang about Sonny, Bobby Hebb. Birthdays on this date include war correspondent Ernie Pyle, John T. Scopes of the Scopes Monkey Trial fame, Mexican-born actress Dolores Del Rio, Tony Bennett, who left his heart in San Francisco, born on this date, and the pro wrestler better known as Haystacks, William Calhoun. Haystacks Calhoun, 600 pounds. He was born on this date in 1934.
Hi, this is Jeff Foxworthy. It is now time for the birthday announcements. The following people are now officially older than dirt.
From a number of movies, including Dolphin Tale and the remake of Freaky Friday, Corey Zolsdorf is 26, model Carly Kloss is 32, from New Girl on Fox, Hannah Simone is 44, from Lost, Evangeline Lilly is 45, from Grey's Anatomy, Isaiah Washington is 61, from the Parent Trap reboot and Bruce Almighty, Lisa Ann Walter is 61, as is Metallica's James Hetfield. From Animal House and Blues Brothers director John Landis is 74. Martha Stewart is 83 today. Martin Sheen is 84. And Jay North, you know him as Dennis the Menace in the TV show. He's 73 years old today. Those are just a few of the people who celebrate the third day of August as their birthday. And if this is your birthday,
happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
One of my favorite episodes of the CBS Radio Workshop, Subways Are for Sleeping, that's up next here on this Saturday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
This is basic civil defense information from the Department of Defense, Office of Civil Defense, Washington. If our nation ever comes under nuclear attack and you take shelter to protect yourself from radioactive fallout, water is the key emergency supply. Each person will need at least a quart a day. And if there's not enough water stored in your shelter, here are additional places to find it, especially if you plan to use a home shelter where you'll be on your own. Local authorities may instruct you to turn off the main water valve. When you do this, the pipes inside the house will still be full of water. Next, turn on the faucet located at the highest point in your house to let air into the system. Then use water from the faucet located at the lowest point in your house. You can also use water in your hot water heater, in the flush tanks, or water in ice cube trays, milk, soft drinks, canned juices. If necessary, you can even drink water that's been exposed to fallout. However, very young children should be given non-contaminated liquids when available. For more information, consult your local civil defense office.
And in case of emergency, doesn't matter whether it has to be nuclear attack or whatever, every household should have an emergency water supply. And learn more at civildefensemuseum.org. Now, the CBS Radio Workshop, one of my favorite productions because it shows that homelessness doesn't mean you have to be a vagrant. Listen to this episode of the CBS Radio Workshop from 68 years ago, August 3rd, 1956. Subways Are for Sleeping.
From Hollywood, the CBS Radio Workshop.
Desk clerk. Journal American 411. Right away.
Good afternoon, Arthur.
Oh, hello, Mr. Shelby.
Any messages for me?
Well, not since I came on, sir.
May I have my key, please?
I'm sorry, Mr. Shelby, but the manager says not to give you your key until your bill's paid.
Oh?
It's $113 and some odd cents.
I know.
You want I should call him so you can talk to him about it?
No, never mind.
Sorry, Mr. Shelby.
It's not your fault, Arthur. I'll stop back in a couple of days to see if there's any mail.
Yes, sir. This way. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Wilson.
$14.60, 65, 66 cents. Well, I can eat for a week or so. And plenty of people sleep in the subway.
CBS Radio presents the CBS Radio Workshop, dedicated to man's imagination, the theater of the mind. Tonight, Subways Are for Sleeping, based upon the Harpers Magazine article by Edmund G Love, a true story of one man's strange adjustment to mid-century materialism in the largest city in the world.
Have you ever gotten fed up with rent, and taxes, and bills, and the clatter of telephones? With all the demands, large and small, that our complicated civilization makes upon us? Henry Shelby finally did. When they locked him out of his hotel room, he stayed out. For the past 3 years, he has, by choice, been homeless and without a steady job. Yet, Henry Shelby is no bum. He is as well dressed and as smoothly shaven as the next man you'll meet. He's not stupid. He holds a master's degree in economics and is a former school teacher. He has never visited a soup kitchen or stood in a bread line or asked for a night's lodging at a Bowery mission. Still, he has learned for himself how to maintain his sanity and peace of mind in a confused and confusing society, which takes from a man more than it gives. Henry Shelby has reversed the process, and this is how he does it.
I'm getting along all right. I'm perfectly happy. I'm just waiting to see how things come out. In the meantime, I see to it that I always have at least 15 cents, so I'm sure of a place to sleep. And the truest statement I ever heard is that no one will ever starve to death in the United States.
$86 in the bean soup. All out of Yankee bean, Mac. Cream of tomatoes, okay. Tomato a bowl. Well, as I live and hope to, Shelby.
Hello, Ernie. See, you've got the counterman wanted sign on the window.
Yeah, guy was here 2 weeks. Today never shows. Want to go to work right now?
Sure.
Well, go on back and grab a hat and jacket. I ain't even checked cash from breakfast yet.
Okay, fine.
Want a cup of coffee or something first? Go right ahead.
No, I'm fine.
Here's your soup, Mac. Crackers or bread?
Crackers. Hey, ain't you the regular counterman?
Me? I'm supposed to manage a joint.
You give any bum comes along a job?
Shelby ain't no bum, Mac. He's a college graduate.
Huh.
Michigan or someplace like that. Used to be a school teacher, too.
So?
Well, he shows up every 3-4 months, works a couple of days for $5 a day in his meals, and then he's gone. When he tells me he ain't coming back.
So that makes him he ain't a bum.
It does in my book. He can do anything around the joint. Do it plenty good, too. How's the soup?
All right.
Anything else?
I don't know yet.
This jacket isn't exactly the best fit in the world.
You look great, Shelby.
I'll bet.
Now, here's your checks and a punch. Everything's the same as last time he was here.
Not quite. Corned beef and beans are up a nickel.
Hey, they are at that. I forgot. Well, she's all yours. I'll check the register.
Anything else for you, sir? Pie? Coffee?
I might have some pie at that. Apple.
Right.
With cheese, I guess.
Right. Empty the mousetrap on this pie.
Hey, look, Shelby, I was thinking I got no night chef for the moment either. Well, why don't you stick around for a couple of weeks and help me out?
Well...
8-hour shift, 5 days, $55, and all the food you can steal.
Here you are, sir. Well, I'll think about it, Ernie. I actually didn't have to think about it. When I went in, I knew I'd only stay for a few days. I have 5 or 6 places like that. They're my Social Security. I use them when my cash is way down and my suit needs dry cleaning, and when I'm ready for a good long sleep, lying down.
So Henry Shelby works just long enough to get a little money ahead. Then he picks up his clean laundry and checks in at a respectable but inexpensive hotel.
Here's the $4.50 in advance. I'm afraid I don't have any luggage. And will you send the valet up to my room in a few minutes, please?
Once his suit is on its way to the cleaners, Shelby spends the next 24 hours in bed or under the shower. He has taken as many as 15 showers on one of these occasions and slept for as long as 22 hours.
It's an extravagance, of course. Costs me $7 or $8, and that's as much as I usually spend in a whole week. But I certainly do feel fine when I check out.
And thus refreshed, Henry Shelby sets out again to roam the streets of New York. First stop, to leave his laundry somewhere in the Grand Central area. He owns 2 of everything except for his 1 suit, and he'll pick up this bundle in a few days. Bathe and change in a booth at Grand Central Terminal, and drop the soiled clothing off at another laundry in the vicinity.
I carry a safety razor in my pocket, and I shave at least every 36 hours. It costs 25 cents for a booth, but I can freshen up generally at the same time. The bums who look like bums are mainly the ones the cops bother. Naturally, I don't consider myself a bum, so I make it a point not to look or feel like one.
"24 hours can be a long time, particularly when all you have to look forward to is 24 more of the same. But Henry Shelby fills them with endless variations of the same pattern, and he walks between whatever geographical points are involved. Breakfast time may find him at a juice bar on 3rd Avenue.
Large tomato juice, please. Come on there, friend. Fill it up. Your sign says 12 full ounces for a dime.
Coffee at the automat on 6th. Another cup later in the gloomy fluorescent glare of a cafeteria in the garment district.
I load in all the cream and sugar the mug will hold. They're calories. Free calories.
Lunch in the Gramercy Park neighborhood today. Yesterday, it may have been at Broadway and 116th, but at the same kind of a white tile stand and very likely the same lunch.
A frankfurter, I guess, and a large glass of milk.
Two or three more cups of calories during the afternoon, and finally, the one substantial meal of the day.
The Vienna loaf dinner looks all right.
Vienna loaf coming up.
Not that slice. The next one with the hard-boiled egg in it. Yes, that one.
Fried or boiled potatoes, corn or stewed tomatoes.
No potatoes. Plenty of starch in the bread. How about a good helping of cream spinach instead?
Mac, if you got to order a la carte, why don't you go to the Waldorf for the 21, huh?
Well, I'll take you to either one of them someday as my guest.
Yeah, I'll hold my breath. Okay, spinach. Now, corn or stewed tomatoes.
Stewed tomatoes. What's that you're putting on?
Gelatin salad comes with it.
No, thanks. Let's trade for a dab of those cooked carrots, okay?
Now, look,
They're
friend.
probably cheaper than the salad. You're saving money for the management.
That's what I'm interested in. Okay, but don't ask me for no Charlotte Russe. There you are, man.
Very good. A very well-balanced dinner.
Yeah, not bad for 42 cents.
Not bad at all. I may continue to give you my patronage when I'm in the neighborhood.
Thus, the inner man is stoked, though perhaps not aesthetically satisfied, and always a walk between each refueling stop. The aesthetic hunger is assuaged along the way. There is the ever-changing kaleidoscope of Manhattan store windows, displaying their shiny wonders, their sturdy commonplaces, their exotic luxuries, their mundane necessities. There is a record of mankind's daily activities the world over, in a newspaper plucked from a trash basket, and there are benches in parks and public buildings where Henry Shelby may rest while he reads. There are pillared halls where paintings and sculpture may be viewed. Henry Shelby is a regular visitor to New York's many art galleries, but his favorite is the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Now, if you'll follow me, we will view the museum's unrivaled collection of the works of Edward Degas.
Edgar Degas. Edgar Hilaire Germain Degas.
Oh?
Oh, I'm sorry, madam.
Oh, don't apologize, young man. That's very interesting.
Degas worked chiefly in oil, although his renderings in pastel have achieved some fame.
He wasn't a bad sculptor either.
Is that so?
The oil to the immediate right and above is At the Milliner's, and to the right of that and below is Dancers Practicing at the Bar.
Only the first one is a pastel, not an oil. This guide is new, I'd imagine.
Let's stay behind, Myrtle. This gentleman knows more about it than the guide does. You don't mind, do you, mister?
No, not at all. They sort of hurry you through on the guided tours.
Now, what about the one that's a pastel instead of an oil?
Well, Degas' pastels, particularly his later ones, do have a deep, rich, almost oil-like texture. He applied the color in successive layers, fixing each tone or shade separately, and using open lines to allow each undercoat to show through.
Oh, well, I don't quite understand, but I see what you mean. Are you an artist?
No, although I'm planning to do some painting. Sometime.
Well, my daughter's very artistic, back in Chillicothe. What's this one, that lady sitting with a big bouquet?
That's an oil. It's called Woman with Chrysanthemums.
Well, that's a good name for it, isn't it?
Yes, isn't it?
Say, if you aren't an artist, how do you know all these things?
Oh, I spend a lot of time here, and I read a great deal.
Oh, you certainly must. Goodness, you're a regular Billy Pearson.
I beg your pardon?
You know, the jockey on television.
Oh, yes. I've read about him. Didn't he win $64,000 and then go on and tie with a fellow named Price for another 64 or something?
Yeah, that's the one. Did you ever watch those programs?
No, I can't say that I do. I'm afraid I don't have a television set.
Yes, there's plenty of free culture and free entertainment to be found in New York City, even without a television set or a radio in your home. Even without a home. One of the most spectacular free entertainments in Manhattan is presented by the fire department. Henry Shelby always follows a fire engine. He generally gets to the fire, too. For the radius in which each engine company operates is small enough to permit even a pedestrian to arrive shortly after the equipment.
Oh, this one is nothing. It's just a chemical job. They might as well have left the ladder truck back at the station. Now, you should have been at Amsterdam on 133rd the other day. I happened to be in the neighborhood at the time.
There are the inevitable New York traffic accidents. Shelby has a nose valise and for straight fights, and he never leaves the scene until the last policeman has closed his notebook. And the parks and public squares are places where a man with a message may speak it forth within certain limits of subject matter.
Can commit mass suicide, and that is to continue to eat the flesh of the animal. What Mother Nature intended us to nourish ourselves with grows in the ground.
Henry Shelby stops to listen to every street corner orator he runs across, weighing gravely the ideas he hears.
I can scarcely agree, but he does have a wonderfully resonant voice.
There are the new buildings that constantly alter New York's skyline. Our well-kept vagrant knows every major construction project in town and shows up at the exact moment some critical problem is to be solved.
No. A little more to the right. Say, does it look to you as if they're placing that girder properly?
It doesn't right now. But they'll raise it another 3 feet and then force it to the right with a crossmember.
Oh, yes, I see.
Actually, it's a different technique than we're accustomed to watching in the usual steel skeleton construction.
Seems to me there'd be too much strain on the crossmember.
No, I understand the alloy is both light enough and strong enough so that, in effect, they're employing a variant of the ancient Egyptian post and lintel method.
Say, there are similarities, aren't there? You're an engineer, I take it.
No. Matter of fact, my master's was in economics.
Is that so? I'm liberal arts myself, Yale 28. Construction's sort of hobby of mine. Watching it at any rate.
Mine, too. So much so that I've done quite a bit of reading on it. There. You see what they're doing now? That's how they equalize the stresses.
So they do. Your office in the neighborhood?
No, it isn't. I just happen to be passing this way.
Mine's just across the street, 230 Park. I'm H.J. Chisholm, Regal Paper Company.
How do you do, sir? I'm Henry Shelby.
Hello. You with the firm or you in business for yourself?
Neither. I don't have a connection right now.
Is that a fact? Well, if you're looking, why don't you stop by the office whenever it suits you? We might very well have something for a chap like you.
That's mighty nice of you, Mr. Chisholm. I'm not really looking at present, but I'll certainly remember you when I am.
I wish you would. Say, wouldn't it save time and an extra piece of heavy equipment to haul those I-beams up on the construction elevator and then place them with one of those small hoists?
It seems that it would at that. I think you have something there, Mr. Chisholm, and I'm going to look into it the next time I'm at the library.
The Public Library, one of Henry Shelby's favorite haunts. A fellow vagrant once advised him that the library was a good place to keep warm on a cold day, but he found it to be much more than that. On his first visit to the massive old building at 42nd and 5th Avenue, he asked for a copy of the New York Times for November 10th, 1936, and was referred politely to the microfilm room.
Here you are, sir. Are you familiar with the operation of the viewing machine?
Not particularly.
I'll be happy to show you. The entire edition is on this roll of film. You place it in the machine, attach the end, and thread it this way. Close the machine and turn the handle forward.
Yes, it's fine.
You sit right down here, use the headrest, and view the film through the aperture.
Yes, I see. Very clear. And very comfortable.
Yes, isn't it? It rather makes research a pleasure, doesn't it?
I should say so. What if I fall asleep?
Well, I'm afraid no one would awaken you if you did. There seem to be so few of you scholars taking advantage of our microfilm facilities. Just come to the desk if you wish additional rolls.
Say, how long has this been going on?
Henry Shelby was asleep in 15 minutes and awoke undisturbed 5 hours later. For some time, the microfilm room was at the top of his list as a place of shelter. Then suddenly he realized it was a far more valuable place for pure entertainment. He has read all the issues of the Times available on film, all his favorite comic strips from the date of their inception, all the columns Damon Runyon ever wrote, and has even developed a system for playing the horses. One time, he worked long enough to accumulate $25, and with it, visited Aqueduct Racetrack.
Now entering the winner's circle is Time You Told Me, ridden by jockey Farrell Zufeld. The time for the mile and a 16th was 1:43 and 2. And the result of the 8th race is now official.
11:20 to win. Let's see, that makes me $87.40 ahead for the day after expenses. Well, how long has this been going on?
Very prudently, Henry Shelby bought himself a new suit of clothes, leaving his original $25 untouched. A few days later, he visited Belmont Park and lost the entire sum.
I still play the races in the microfilm room. During the winter, I study the preceding summer's entries, make my selections, and check them against the results in the following day's paper. I never look at the results in advance. Might just as well be honest about it.
Yes, New York offers many diversions. There is the waterfront, the ferry boats, the slips where the huge liners dock.
I come down here a couple of times a week. I always try to be around when the Mary or the Elizabeth are coming in. Now, what's that Weehawken ferry doing a quarter-mile off her course? Just sightseeing, I'll bet. Well, I heard Captain ought to have his confounded papers picked up.
Shelby enjoys the ferry boats, all of them, but his favorite is the Staten Island ferry.
There's nothing quite like it in the world. Outward bound from the Battery, there's the thrill of passing the Statue of Liberty. And coming back, Miss Liberty welcomes you home as the incredible skyline of lower Manhattan hangs shimmering in the haze, like the pleasure dome of Kubla Khan. Where else can a poor man get such an ocean voyage for a dime?
Of course, 10 cents for one round trip does put the Staten Island ferry in the luxury class, but during the rush hours, Shelby has discovered that he can board the Jersey Central ferries across the Hudson and make 3 or 4 trips for the same dime without being noticed. This kills time and also furnishes amusement, for Shelby quietly enjoys criticizing the pilots who do not bring their vessels squarely into the slips. Among other things, Henry Shelby has become an expert on the management and conduct of New York Harbor. And then there are the parades. New York City is the only place where there is a parade of some sort every day. That's one of the reasons Henry Shelby is happier here than he would be in any other city in the world.
I just love band music. Why, last Armistice Day, I saw 5 different parades and even marched in one. I carried the front end of the bass drum and got $3 for doing it.
So, the patternless pattern of Henry Shelby's days, and the days of perhaps thousands like him. Men who choose to work only enough to maintain a bare thread of personal existence in a society that clamors for workers and rewards them with possessions and security and the same comfortable resting place each nightfall. Where does Henry Shelby sleep? A clean hotel bed is a once-a-month extravagance to him. Perhaps he trudges to the Pennsylvania station and boards an 8th Avenue subway train at about 1 o'clock in the morning. That's why his cash minimum is 15 cents, the price of a subway token. He settles himself in the almost empty front car and drops off to sleep. He awakens before he reaches the end of the line, has a smoke, boards another train, and sleeps to the other end of the line. He has several standard trips mapped out: J Street to Queens, back to the Brooklyn end of the line, up to the tip of Manhattan, back to Penn Station. In 5 hours, he has probably netted 4 hours' sleep. He has learned the habits of the transportation police, and he tries to keep himself from becoming too familiar a figure.
That's why I use the subway maybe only every other night, or not quite that often. In warm weather, there are fire escapes, some of them covered, and Central Park and Prospect Park. And when it's really hot, there are the beaches. No one ever bothers you there. Always plenty of legitimate sleepers trying to beat the heat.
When it rains and when the New York winter comes, there are other carefully cataloged places for shelter and a few hours' sleep. Grand Central, Penn Station, the Port Authority bus terminal, hotel lobbies. There are rules of conduct for each, and Henry Shelby knows and observes them all. On rare occasions, he's questioned, but he always has the answers.
Come on there, mister. Come on, wake up, up.
Well, I certainly dozed off, didn't I, officer?
You certainly did. You think this is a flop house?
Of course not. It's very obviously Grand Central Terminal.
That it is, and we don't allow bums to nap their bibs in here.
Bums? I ought to resent that, officer.
Well, resent it all you like. Seems to me I've seen you in here before.
Well, that's quite possible. I take the 2 o'clock local for Poughkeepsie almost every night. I missed it tonight, so I'm waiting for the next train. 6:05, I believe it is.
It is. Can you prove you're not a vag?
A what?
A vagrant. You got any money on you?
Why, yes. Let me see. $6, $7, $8. And here's my ticket to Poughkeepsie.
Mm-hmm. Well, you'd better get going, mister, or you'll miss your train.
What?
Yes, it's 2 minutes after 6.
Oh, I had no idea. I nearly overslept.
That you did.
Thank you so much for awakening me.
Not at all. That's what I'm here for.
Yes. Well, I must say you're right on the job.
You bet I am. That's Gate 9, mister, the Poughkeepsie local.
Yes. Well, I don't want to miss it this time.
No, you don't.
So, for the first time, Henry Shelby had to take the train for Poughkeepsie under the suspicious glare of the railroad cop. But the ticket was never punched, for he got off the train at 125th Street to begin another day of Manhattan meandering. Henry Shelby is never without 3 tickets. One to Poughkeepsie, one to Princeton, and the third to Elizabeth, New Jersey. His operating equipment for sleeping in the 3 major terminals. Why does this strangely bewildered, yet far from hopeless man live apart from responsibility and the place he could so easily regain in working society? How many weeks, or months, or years will he continue to walk the streets of Manhattan?
I don't know how long I'll live this life. I don't have much trouble. I've never gotten drunk and lain in a doorway all day. I've never been on a police blotter. I've never had to beg. Things seem so easy and natural, just as though they were supposed to be this way. I'm not going to look at the future. All I know now is that at 6 o'clock, I'm going to be at a little delicatessen up on Broadway where they serve a mighty fine boiled beef dinner for 68 cents. And I'd better get going. Takes me almost an hour to walk it. Why don't I take the subway? Why, subways are for sleeping.
The CBS Radio Workshop is produced in Hollywood by William N. Robeson and was tonight directed by Mr. Robeson. Subways Are for Sleeping was based on the Harpers Magazine article by Edmund G. Love and was adapted for the workshop by Fran Van Hartesveld. Henry Shelby was played by Byron Kane, and the narrator was William Keneally. Also heard in the cast were Sarah Selby, Helene Burke, Edwin Bruce, Frank Gerstle, Court Falkenberg, Tony Barrett, Ted Bliss, and Alan Reed. The original score was composed and conducted by Fred Steiner. Next week, from New York, the workshop will present Only Johnny Knows, a survey of child training from the birds and the bees era of wonderful innocence a century ago to the complex and guilt era of today's psychiatric sophistication. A brilliant performance of the rarely played Symphony No. 6 in D minor by Jan Sibelius with Nils Erik Fugstad conducting the Sibelius Festival Orchestra is yours for the listening this Sunday when World Music Festivals comes your way on most of these same stations. Stay tuned for 5 minutes of CBS News to be followed over most of these same stations by My Son Jeep. America listens most to the CBS Radio Network.
One of the best things about doing the podcast and not doing it for radio is I don't have to cut that up because I think it's a wonderful 30-minute piece of text that certainly gives you an image of what New York might have been in the age in which Edmund G Love wrote this 68 years ago. August 3rd, 1956, the CBS Radio Workshop here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. By the way, Harpers Magazine has an interesting little take on all of this. They actually have the original article up there, along with a few links that you might find of interest, including a link to an obit about Edmund G Love, and a story about the musical. Yes, a musical became of this. You can find it on our Facebook page and also over at classicradio.stream. Coming up in a moment, Mr. Keen, Tracer of Lost Persons.
This is basic civil defense information from the Department of Defense, Office of Civil Defense, Washington. Especially in time of emergency, think before you act and follow instructions by responsible authorities. You may receive warning of an attack by outdoor warning systems or by radio or television or even by word of mouth. Unless local officials have instructed you otherwise, go immediately to a public fallout shelter or to your home fallout shelter. Then tune your radio to any local station that is broadcasting and listen for official information. Follow whatever instructions are given. Don't use the telephone to obtain further information and advice about the emergency. Depend on radio, as the government will be broadcasting all the information it has available. The telephone lines will be needed for official calls. Help keep them open. Let me repeat, in time of emergency, for official government information and civil defense instructions, tune your radio to any local station that is broadcasting.
Shelter is important in any emergency situation. Learn more about shelters at civildefensemuseum.com. All right, Philip Clark starring as Mr. Keen, Tracer of Lost Persons. This episode of the program from 73 years ago, August 3rd, 1951, in the case of the strange murder of Carrie Ellis.
Tracer of Lost Persons, a new weekly feature on NBC's All-Star Festival of Mystery, Comedy, Music, and Drama. Brought to you by RCA Victor, world leader in radio, first in recorded music and first in television. By Chesterfield, always milder, better tasting, cooler smoking, plus no unpleasant aftertaste. And by Anacin, for fast relief from pain of headache, neuritis, and neuralgia. Now here's Perry Como for RCA Victor.
Surprising, surprising that you should come along. That you should come along that summer day just when you did. Surprising, surprising that you should smile at me. And I should smile at you that summer day just as we did.
For a repeat performance from Perry Como, you can hear Surprising again and again on RCA Victor Records. It's available now at record dealers everywhere. This romantic ballad that's skyrocketing to the top in RCA Victor's summer parade of hits. And coupled with Surprising is another terrific new pop number, Cara Cara Bella Bella. One side surprising, the flip side, Cara Cara Bella Bella. Sung by America's leading baritone, Perry Como, on RCA Victor Records. Now, Mr. Keen, Tracer of Lost Persons, one of the most famous characters of American fiction, in one of radio's most thrilling dramas. Tonight, the famous old investigator's case is entitled The Case of the Strange Murder of Carrie Ellis. Our scene is a fashionable home in the suburbs of New York. A young woman of great poise and beauty is about to answer the insistent ring of her doorbell, unaware that her unexpected visitor is accompanied by death.
Yes? Are you Mrs. Carrie Ellis?
Yes, I am.
Well, I wanted to see you about something.
Well, who are you?
Who am I?
What on earth's the matter with you? Are you ill?
I hate you.
What? I said, I hate you. Are you out of your mind? I never saw you before. Please leave my house. Do you hear what I said? Please.
Going out to lunch, Mike?
Oh, I thought I'd grab myself a sandwich, Mr. Keene. Someone's at the door, boss. I'll see who it is. Yes, lady?
Are you Mr. Keene?
No, I'm his partner, Mike Clancy. Here's Mr. Keene.
What can I do for you?
Help me, Mr. Keene. I didn't mean to do it. I don't even remember doing it. Please, you've got to save me.
Save you? From what?
I've just shot a woman to death.
Saints preserve us.
Come inside.
Boss, she looks like she's a bit out of her mind.
Who are you?
My name is Helen Taylor.
And you've just killed someone?
Yes. With this gun.
I'll take charge of that if you don't mind. 2 bullets are missing from this gun.
Yes. Mrs. Ellis was shot twice.
Mrs. Ellis? Is she the woman you killed?
Yes.
Where did this happen?
In her home. Oh, Mr. Keene, I just can't understand it. I've never even seen Mrs. Ellis before in my life. What possessed me to take a gun and go to her home to murder her?
I'd like to help you if I can. Now, why not tell me the entire story, Miss Taylor?
Mrs. Taylor, I'm married, Mr. Keene. And that's another thing that horrifies me. This will ruin my husband's life.
Mike?
Yes, boss.
And get a hold of the car, will you? I think we ought to go to the scene of the crime immediately.
Okay, sir.
We'll meet you downstairs in 5 minutes.
Right, Mr. Keene.
Mrs. Taylor, tell me exactly what happened from the beginning.
Oh, Mr. Keene, I only know that I found myself with that gun in my hand in Mrs. Ellis' apartment. She was lying on the floor, dead.
And you don't know who she is?
Well, her name is familiar, but that's all. I'm sure I've never seen her before.
Have you been ill, Mrs. Taylor? I mean, have you ever suffered from amnesia, a loss of memory?
No.
Where can I reach your husband?
Oh, in his shop. Peter has a small business, costume jewelry.
And his phone number?
Central 71331. Mr. Keene, you're going to tell him about me?
I'm going to ask him to meet us at the home of Mrs. Ellis.
Taylor and Company.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Now, this is Mr. Keene speaking.
Mr. Keene, the famous investigator.
Your wife is in my office at the moment.
Helen, why? What's happened?
Mr. Taylor, do you know a Mrs. Ellis?
Mrs. Carrie Ellis? Why, yes, she's a customer of mine, a wealthy widow.
And then you know where she lives.
1114 Highland Boulevard.
Can you meet me there within half an hour?
Why, what's up, Mr. Keene?
I'd rather not discuss it on the phone. Now, just tell me one thing. Has your wife been ill recently?
No.
No attacks of amnesia?
Why, no. Mr. Keene, you're beginning to frighten me.
Taylor, your wife seems to feel that she was responsible for someone's death.
What's that?
Well, that's all I can say right now. Meet me at Mrs. Ellis's house in half an hour.
Yes, I'll be there, Mr. Keene. And thanks for calling.
Goodbye. Are you ready to leave, Mrs. Taylor?
Mr. Keene, I appreciate what you're doing for me. I've read about you and heard how kind you've been to those who need your help. That's why I came to you almost instinctively.
You don't appear to be the type of a woman who'd settle things with a revolver, Mrs. Taylor. Let me warn you, however, that if this is some kind of a ruse, I'll see that you pay for it.
Every word I've told you is the truth, Mr. Keene. I swear it.
Very well, Mrs. Taylor. Let's leave and check this thing completely at the scene of the crime.
Well, looks like the police are here already, boss.
Yes, Mike. I noticed the squad cars parked across the street.
Well?
Is this Mrs. Carrie Ellis's home?
Yes.
Who is it, Miss Hooper? Well, boss, that's Lieutenant Hale of the homicide squad.
Lieutenant, it's Mr. Keene and Mike Clancy.
Oh, hello, Mr. Keene. Come right in. How are you, Mike?
Okay, Lieutenant.
How did you know about this murder, Mr. Keene?
This woman, Mrs. Taylor, came to my office.
Taylor, huh? Is this your scarf, Mrs. Taylor? It's initialed H.T.
Yes, it's mine.
Where did you find it, Lieutenant?
Near the body, Mr. Keene. Mrs. Taylor, just what do you know about the death of Mrs. Carrie Ellis?
Mrs. Taylor told me that she was the one who killed her, Lieutenant.
Well, that makes things simple. Ryan.
Yeah, Lieutenant.
Take Mrs. Taylor down to headquarters.
Mr. Keene.
Go with the police officer, Mrs. Taylor. It's best that way. But you can depend on me to do everything I can to help you.
I will, Mr. Keene.
Let's go.
Is Mrs. Ellis's body still here, Lieutenant Hale?
No, Mr. Keene. We removed it to the morgue. This young lady found it about an hour ago. She's the victim's niece, Miss Betty Hooper.
Mrs. Taylor deserves the electric chair. She killed my aunt in cold blood.
Lieutenant, may I see you alone for a few moments?
Of course. Excuse us, Miss Hooper.
Very well.
Do you mind if I have a look around inside myself, Lieutenant?
Go ahead, Mike. That you're wasting your time. The crime is solved.
I don't think it is, Lieutenant.
But Mrs. Taylor admitted she killed Mrs. Ellis.
She only admitted to me that she discovered herself here with a gun in her hands and Mrs. Ellis on the floor. But she doesn't remember coming here or killing the woman.
Amnesia has been tried as an alibi before, Mr. Keene. It's an old trick.
I don't think this is a trick, Lieutenant. And it doesn't seem to be amnesia. In a true case of amnesia, the past is a complete blank in the person's mind. But Mrs. Taylor remembers a great many personal details about herself. And she claims she never saw Mrs. Ellis before in all her life.
Well, Mr. Keene, maybe she's insane.
I doubt it. However, any psychiatrist can testify to that. In my opinion, Mrs. Taylor may be the victim of a diabolical plot.
You mean you don't think she actually killed Mrs. Ellis?
No, Lieutenant Hale. And perhaps I'll be able to prove it to you very soon. And Mrs. Hooper, you say you've never seen Mrs. Taylor before.
No, Mr. Keene. But this questioning seems ridiculous. The woman confessed that she killed my aunt, didn't she?
I have reason to believe that Mrs. Taylor didn't murder your aunt.
You're about the only one who thinks so. When Lieutenant Hale of the police left, he took her along to prison, didn't he?
Tell me, Miss Hooper, are you Mrs. Ellis's closest relative?
Why, yes. I had no one except Aunt Carrie, Mrs. Ellis.
I understand she was a wealthy woman.
When her husband was killed in an accident, he left her almost $1 million.
And as her closest relative, you inherit that.
Of course I... What are you getting at, Mr. Keene?
Nothing, at the moment.
Boss, that must be Mrs. Taylor's husband.
Let Mike Clancy answer the door, Miss Hooper. There are one or two things I still want to question you about.
I get it, boss.
Mr. Keene, there's nothing I can tell you.
Have you been living here with your aunt, Miss Hooper?
Not for several months.
Then you lived with her before?
Yes, after my father died.
Why aren't you still living with her?
Because Aunt Carrie tried to boss me around and I didn't like it. I'm old enough to do as I please.
That's funny, Mr. Keene, sir.
What's the matter, Mike?
Well, when I opened the front door, there was no one there.
There wasn't?
Mr. Keene, look.
What is it, Miss Hooper?
There's a face staring in at us through the window.
She's right, Mike.
I'll find out what this business is in a hurry. Stop. Stop where you are, mister, or I'll shoot.
Get him inside, Mike.
Inside, mister. And since you're so fond of windows, you can get in through this one. And no tricks. Now, step over here.
Who are you?
My name is Smith. John Smith.
Oh, and so is mine. We must be the fellas who invented the cough drops.
Search him, Mike.
Take your hands off me.
Stay quiet, young fella. Here. Here's his wallet, Mr. Keene, sir. There's an identification inside. The name is Vernon Phillips.
And what were you doing outside that window, Mr. Phillips?
None of your business.
And none of your lip either.
He must have heard our voices as he rang the doorbell a few moments ago, Mike. Then he ran around to the back of the house to check on who was inside.
Sure, and he's got reason to hide, boss. Look what this bucko's been carrying around.
It's a gun, Mr. Keene.
Are there any bullets missing from the gun, Mike?
Yes, boss. 2 bullets have been fired.
Well, it appears as though this case has taken another mysterious turn. I think we'll have a little talk with Mr. Phillips. It should prove to be an interesting one.
Mr. Keene will return in just a moment. But first...
Hi, folks. This is Bing Crosby. This being summer, I just want to remind you when you go on a vacation, take along a carton or two of those mild Chesterfields. Yes, sir, vacation time's the time to relax and enjoy life, to do just what you want to do. And what better time can you think of to start smoking Chesterfield, the cigarette that gives you everything you want for real smoking pleasure? Remember, Chesterfields are milder, always milder, better tasting, and cooler smoking. Chesterfield gives you all that, plus the added pleasure of no unpleasant aftertaste. Believe me, that's the biggest plus in cigarette history. So I tell you what you do. Whether you're just getting away for a few days or you plan to get off on a long vacation, you be sure you pack along plenty of Chesterfields. And take it from me, Chesterfield's the best cigarette for you to smoke.
Now back to Mr. Keene and the case of the strange murder of Carrie Ellis. Mr. Keene, the famous investigator, and his partner Mike Clancy are investigating the strange murder of Carrie Ellis, a wealthy and beautiful young widow. A woman named Helen Taylor has confessed to the murder, but the strange circumstances lead Mr. Keene to believe she's been made the victim of a diabolical plot. Now, a new suspect, a man named Vernon Phillips, who was prowling outside the Ellis home, has been caught by Mike. Mr. Keene is trying to find out why a gun with 2 missing bullets was found in his pocket. Mike is saying,
All right, mister. I think it's time you did a little talking.
Perhaps when Mr. Phillips realizes what a difficult position he's in, Mike, he'll be more cooperative.
I have a license to carry that gun, if that's what you mean, Mr. Keene.
Did you also have a license to use it on Mrs. Carrie Ellis?
Carrie? What's happened to her?
She was murdered, Mr. Phillips.
Carrie? Murdered?
Now will you tell us why you came here with a gun and acted so suspiciously?
No. You're trying to pin the murder on me. I won't answer your questions.
That must be Mrs. Taylor's husband now, boss.
No, please bring him in here, Mike.
Okay.
When did the murder happen, Mr. Keene?
Carrie Ellis was shot to death several hours ago, here in her home.
Boss, here's Peter Taylor.
Where is my wife, Mr. Keene? Why, it's Vernon.
Mr. Taylor, you seem to recognize Vernon Phillips.
Yes, I recognize him. I've seen him with Mrs. Ellis. That's a lie. You're the man she quarreled with one afternoon while I was here. I was delivering some jewelry she'd ordered in my shop.
Mrs. Ellis has been murdered, Mr. Taylor.
Murdered? Then, Mr. Keene, that's what you meant when you said on the phone that Helen, my wife, was responsible for someone's death.
I didn't say she was responsible. I said she thought she was.
Where is my wife, Mr. Keene? I've got to see her.
She's been taken to the city prison, Mr. Taylor.
All right, I'm going there now.
Just a moment, please. There are 1 or 2 things I must ask you. Did your wife know Carrie Ellis? Did they ever meet?
No, they never met, as far as I remember.
Would she have any reason to murder Mrs. Ellis?
Mr. Keene, must I answer that question? I ought to consult a lawyer first, for my wife's sake.
I'm trying to help her as much as you are, Mr. Taylor.
Very well. I'll promise to tell you everything I know, if you'll allow me one privilege first.
What is it?
Let me talk to Helen.
After you talk to her, where can I meet you?
At my home. Here's my card.
And just one thing before you go. Are you certain you can identify this man, Vernon Phillips, and testify that you heard him quarrel with the murdered woman, Mrs. Ellis?
I can't prove it, of course, Mr. Keene. There were no other witnesses. But I was in another room with my sample jewelry case when I heard him force his way inside.
Very well. You may leave, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Keene. I'm going to the city prison immediately.
Well, Mr. Phillips, do you still insist on keeping silent after what Mr. Taylor just told us?
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that I will, Mr. Keene.
Do you know anything about this man, Miss Hooper?
I've never seen him. But my Aunt Carrie had talked about him without mentioning his name.
What did she say?
She seemed to be afraid of someone. A man, she said, had fallen violently in love with her. Many men have done that because Aunt Carrie was very beautiful. That's why I didn't give it much thought. Even when Aunt Carrie mentioned his eyes.
His eyes?
She said they were strange eyes, and they frightened her. Mr. Phillips here has eyes like that.
Well, that's ridiculous. I'd never have harmed Carrie Ellis. I loved her too.
That's an admission you won't be able to retract, Phillips.
You're not going to get another word out of me, Mr. Keene.
Suit yourself. Put the handcuffs on him, Mike.
What?
Phillips, I'm turning you over to the police on suspicion of murder.
Mrs. Taylor is in cell number 4, on your right, Mr. Keene.
Thank you, Lieutenant Hale.
Well, she'll be happy to hear that she's got a chance to go free now, boss.
Yes, Mike. But we still don't know if Vernon Phillips can really be held as a suspect.
Oh, but the gun he had, with 2 bullets fired.
Here's Mrs. Taylor's cell. Good evening, Mrs. Taylor.
What?
Boss, she looks at us like she don't recognize us.
You remember me, don't you, Mrs. Taylor?
Do I? Oh, yes. Mr. Keene and Mr. Clancy.
I have news for you. A man named Vernon Phillips has just been arrested on suspicion of murdering Mrs. Ellis.
Vernon Phillips?
Have you ever heard of him?
No. But they should set him free. I murdered Mrs. Ellis.
But you aren't sure you pulled the trigger.
I am sure now.
Mr. Keene, she's practically making a full confession.
Mrs. Taylor, just tell me this. Do you know why you killed Carrie Ellis?
Yes.
She didn't know why before, boss.
And what was the reason, Mrs. Taylor?
Jealousy. My husband was seeing her on business, and I imagined there was something going on between them. I killed Carrie Ellis because of jealousy. And I'd do it again if I had the chance.
I see.
Now, please leave me alone, Mr. Keene.
Come along, Mike.
Well, looks as though we've just been wasting our time, boss. She was guilty all along.
No, Mike. Everything is clear to me now. Completely clear. I think I know where to find the real murderer of Carrie Ellis. But getting a confession may be another story. However, I'm going to take a chance. If it works, we'll learn the solution to one of the most astounding mysteries we've ever had to solve.
Oh, Mr. Keene, come in, sir.
I hope I haven't kept you waiting long, Mr. Taylor.
No, that's quite all right.
You've seen your wife in the city prison?
Yes. And now I'm prepared to tell you everything.
Go on, Mr. Taylor.
My wife did murder Carrie Ellis. But you must be lenient with her, Mr. Keene. She lost her head.
Now, why did she commit the murder?
She was insanely jealous of Mrs. Ellis. Somehow, she learned that I was going to Mrs. Ellis's house. Actually, I was merely showing costume jewelry samples.
Oh, isn't that unusual? Don't your customers make their purchases in your shop?
Yes, but Mrs. Ellis was very wealthy, so I'd bring my sample case to her home.
But your wife got the wrong impression about your visit to Mrs. Ellis. Is that it?
Exactly, Mr. Keene. That's the entire story.
And every word of it is a lie.
What?
I have reason to believe, Mr. Taylor, that you murdered Carrie Ellis.
You're not serious.
You're under arrest, Taylor. Put your hands up.
That gun isn't necessary.
No?
Mr. Keene, you're making a big mistake.
I don't think I am.
Look at me, Mr. Keene. Don't you see that I'm innocent? Can't you see it in my eyes?
I think you'd better come with me, Mr. Taylor.
Look in my eyes again, Mr. Keene. Deep inside. Do you see a murderer's heart? Of course you don't. Mr. Keene?
Yes.
Hand your gun to me. I'm commanding you to give me your gun now.
Very well. Here's my gun.
Thank you. The great Mr. Keene. The amazing investigator. As easy to hypnotize as a child. Do you hear what I'm saying, Mr. Keene?
Yes. I hear.
This situation is really amusing. Here you are, knowing I killed Carrie Ellis. But you're hypnotized, and you can't do anything about it. Sit down. In that chair.
Yes.
My wife was easy to hypnotize, too. Very easy. I've had her under a semi-hypnotic spell ever since I married her. She does exactly as I command.
Mr. Taylor, I must...
Just be quiet, Mr. Keene. Would you like to know why I killed Carrie Ellis? She found out that I was married, and she was going to tell my wife that I'd tried to make love to her.
She tried to...
And then she was going to turn me over to the police for threatening her for money. The fool. Why else did she think I wanted to marry her?
Why are you telling me this, Taylor?
Because you're now under my hypnotic control and you're helpless. I'll admit I didn't expect my wife Helen to go to you for help. But this time there'll be no mistakes. You're finished, Keene, as of now. I'm taking care of you with your own gun. Why, this gun, it's not loaded.
I have another gun here, Taylor, that is loaded.
What?
Put up your hand.
Open up in there.
Just a moment, Mike. Stay where you are, Taylor, and keep your hands up.
Are you okay, boss?
Yes, I'm fine, Mike. Here, take this gun and keep it trained on Taylor. He's one of the most dangerous killers I've ever encountered.
Keene, you weren't under my hypnotic control. You were acting.
I happen to know something about hypnotism myself, Taylor, and I wanted to get admission of guilt out of you. You worked on your wife with hypnotic suggestion. You made her believe she hated Carrie Ellis, and you commanded her to go to the Ellis home.
Saints preserve us. He's another Spengali.
That's right, Mike, but an unsuccessful one. He followed his wife to Mrs. Ellis' apartment. Then he shot Mrs. Ellis and placed the gun in the hand of his hypnotized wife, telling her to make a full confession of guilt. He left her scarf, too, as additional evidence.
You fooled me, Keene. You walked in here without a shred of evidence and tricked a confession out of me.
Carrie Ellis' niece mentioned a man with eyes like yours, Taylor, and her description made me think of hypnotism. Then I knew the answer to your wife's peculiar behavior.
Well, boss, I just came from police headquarters, and that fella Phillips did a little more talking.
I thought he would, Mike.
The 2 missing bullets from his gun were fired when he was practicing on a target. He said he came to Mrs. Ellis's house to protect her.
Mrs. Ellis must have said something to him about Taylor, without mentioning Taylor's name.
Carrie threw Phillips over because I made her do it. I told her I'd kill any man who came between us if I couldn't have her.
Were you going to add bigamy to your list of crimes, Taylor?
Oh, Helen would have given me my divorce, Keene.
Undoubtedly. Under your hypnotic spell. Your fiendish plot had a great many facets to it, Taylor, but it also had some flaws. I'm arresting you for the murder of Carrie Ellis, and I doubt very much if you'll be able to hypnotize the district attorney when he has you tried and convicted.
And so Mr. Keene finds the solution to the case of the strange murder of Carrie Ellis. If you suffer from pains of headaches, neuritis, or neuralgia, you should discover what many thousands have known for years, that Anacin brings incredibly fast, effective relief. Anacin is like a doctor's prescription. That is, Anacin contains not just one, but a combination of medically proven active ingredients in easy-to-take tablet form. Probably at some time you've received an envelope containing Anacin tablets from your physician or dentist. Thousands of people have been introduced to Anacin this way. Try Anacin yourself the next time you suffer from the pains of a headache, neuritis, or neuralgia. You'll be delighted at how quickly relief can come. Anacin is spelled A-N-A-C-I-N. Your druggist has Anacin in handy boxes of 12 and 30 tablets and economical family-size bottles of 50 and 100 for your medicine cabinet. Ask for Anacin today. Listen again next week to Mr. Keene, Tracer of Lost Persons, a new weekly feature on NBC's All-Star Festival of mystery, comedy, music, and drama. Brought to you by RCA Victor, world leader in radio, first in recorded music, and first in television. By Chesterfield, always milder, better tasting, cooler smoking, plus no unpleasant aftertaste. And by Anacin, for fast relief from pain of headache, neuritis, and neuralgia. Mr. Keene, Tracer of Lost Persons, is based on the novel Mr. Keene. The radio sequel is originated and produced by Frank and Ann Hummert. Richard Leonard is the director. Philip Clark plays Mr. Keene. Your announcer, Jack Costello. Remember, Mr. Keene is now on the air at this new time, every Friday at 9:30 Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Don't miss Mr. Keene next Friday, when the kindly old tracer turns to the abandoned well murder case.
Bennett Kilpack, probably the best-known Mr. Keene. Arthur Hughes, Phil Clark stepping into the role later in the series. And the show aired for 18 years and just one of a literal ton of what people have called Frank and Ann Hummert's Radio Factory. The amount of shows they did. Among them, apart from the show you just heard, Mr. Keene, Just Plain Bill, The Romance of Helen Trent, Ma Perkins, Backstage Wife, and so many great shows. That's just a handful of what they produced. The Hummerts responsible for a great deal of classic radio. Coming up tomorrow on Classic Radio Theater, comedy, the First Nighter program, a delightful, it's the tail end of the run, so it's not great stuff, but it's light comedy with Barbara Luddy, Olin Soleil, Two Loves Had She, also Stan Freberg, another episode of A Date with Judy starring Deli Ellis, The Magnificent Montague starring Monty Woolley, and we'll cap it off with another episode of Dr. Roebling and the Voice Machine, an episode in the ongoing adventures of Superman. That's coming up on our Sunday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. But coming up next, just the facts, man, Jack Webb in Dragnet.
What's with the basket, Mom? Picnic?
Nope, this is Grandma's Pantry, modern version.
Great, Mom. Only what's it for?
Civil defense. And you're the one who brought the idea home from scout meeting. Here, help me check off the list. Fruit juice?
Yup.
Powdered milk?
Right.
Canned meats?
Yep.
Into civil defense comes Grandma's Pantry, the symbol of preparedness. Unexpected company? Grandma always had plenty for everyone.
No matter what unexpected disaster, your family should have a 7-day supply of food on hand, kept well protected in jars or tins, and safe in a shelter area.
In an emergency or during evacuation in case of enemy attack, it's too late to plan. You will have to depend on your own resources, on Grandma's Pantry.
Assure the future. Know the 6 steps to survival. Make this year your family's year for civil defense. You take the first step.
Civil defense, an American tradition.
This Saturday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox continues with a pair from Jack Webb. We start off with what I have to admit is his most famous role, and it's what got him into producing and creating shows, something more than just as a fling. Jack Webb's Dragnet, 70 years ago, August 3rd, 1954. This episode entitled The Big Stand.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Dragnet, brought to you by Chesterfield, America's most popular two-way cigarette. Chesterfield King Size at the new low price, and Chesterfield Regular.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to homicide detail. A man has been shot down on a street corner of your city. There's no apparent motive, no lead to the assailant. Your job, find him.
What a pair.
What a buy. They're talking about Chesterfield King Size at the new low price. And Chesterfield Regular. They're the quality twins. Either way you like them, you get the same highest quality, the same low nicotine, the same wonderful taste and mildness, a refreshing smoke every time. Yes, the Chesterfield you smoke today is the best cigarette ever made, and it's America's most popular two-way cigarette. So buy a carton today. King size Chesterfield at the new low price. or Chesterfield Regular. What a pair they are. They satisfy millions. They're best for you.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Tuesday, May 8th. It was cool in Los Angeles. We were working the night watch out of homicide detail. My partner's Frank Smith. The boss is Captain Lorman. My name's Friday. I was on my way over from the office, and it was 10:13 p.m. when I got to Georgia Street Receiving Hospital. The waiting room. Hi, Frank.
Joe?
How's he doing?
I don't know. I'll talk to Dr. Sebastian.
How's it look?
Well, not too good. Slugs embedded in his lung caused a hemorrhage. He's getting a transfusion.
What do you got on it?
I just talked to the guys who came in with him for a minute. They didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
Call came in from a man who owns a newsstand at the corner of Normandy and Willowbrook.
See the witness?
Yeah.
Anything there?
I don't know. We'll have to talk to him.
What do you got on the victim?
Wait a minute. I got it here. Name's Matthew Denton. Address given is 18970 Taft Street in Hollywood.
Did you get in touch with anybody?
No, tried the house, but nobody was there.
Anything else?
Yeah, went over the personal property. Usual stuff, cigarettes, lighter, comb. Found a diamond ring on the small finger left hand. Looks expensive. Gold wristwatch. $140 in cash. $1,300 in American Express checks.
Doesn't spell robbery, does it?
No. None of the stuff was disturbed.
Well, maybe you can tell us something, huh?
Yeah.
Joe, Frank.
Hi, Doc. How are you? How's it look?
What time you got?
10:16.
Make it 10:13 then. Close enough for the report.
What?
Time of death.
Matthew Trevor Denton, WMA. 31 years, 5'9", 164 pounds, had stopped living at 10:13 p.m. on May 8th. We didn't know who he was or why he died. Before we left the hospital, we put in a call to Denton's address, but we got no answer. We checked the name and description through R&I. There was no record on the dead man. At 10:48 p.m., we left Georgia Street and drove over to the scene of the shooting, where we talked to the witness, Andrew Cates.
Right over there is where it happened. The bus stop.
Uh-huh.
I was standing right here. Right here.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the whole thing happen.
Yes, sir. About what time was that, Mr. Cates?
Oh, I guess it was 9:30 or so.
I see.
I was just standing here, and bang, bang, 2 shots.
Did you see what led up to the shooting?
Well, what do you mean, let up?
Well, I mean, did you see what happened before?
Oh, yeah, whole thing.
Uh-huh. Would you tell us about it?
Sure.
All right. Go ahead.
Well, one of those nights where just nothing went right, you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
I started off with my wife burning the coffee. I wouldn't think a person could do that, would you? Burn the coffee?
So, like, go ahead.
I had a big argument before I left home. I just started off that way.
Yes, sir.
Got on here and took over.
About what time did you open the stand, sir?
Oh, I was 7:30 in the morning. Try to get breakfast business, you know. People on the way to eat. Stop off for early paper.
I see.
I try to get them.
All right.
I open her up in the morning, and then there's a school kid takes over for me about 3 in the afternoon. He's here until around 6:30 when I come back from supper.
I see.
That's when she burned the coffee. Night supper.
All right. You want to tell us about the shooting?
Oh, sure. Kind of hard, you know. This is the first time for me.
How's that?
Well, it's the first time I've ever been a witness. First.
I see. What time did you first see the victim?
Man who was shot?
Yes, sir.
Well, I told you. It was about 9:30. The car pulled up to the curb, and this fella got out. He kind of stood there for a minute, and he talked to the other fella in the car. He just stood there a minute and talked, kind of leaning in the window.
Mm-hmm.
Car pulled away, and the one who got out,
yeah,
he walked over and sat down on the bench like he was waiting for the bus.
Mr. Cates, you got a good look at the car he got out of?
Well, I saw it, if that's what you mean.
Would you describe it for us?
It was a black Chevy. I'd say maybe a 52 or 53.
Sedan or coupe?
No, it was a sedan, 4-door. Nothing special about it.
Did you get a look at the man that was driving?
No, the light's kind of bad over there. You can see for yourself. The one fellow leaned in the car, I couldn't get a good look. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it anyway. It didn't seem anything to get all concerned about.
All right, sir. You want to go ahead?
Well, the fella sat there for a minute, not doing nothing, just waiting. Then this other car pulled up, right up the curb.
Mm-hmm.
One guy got out of the car, got right out, and walked over to the fellow sitting on the bench.
I see.
Oh, excuse me a minute, the customer.
All right, sir.
What do you think?
I don't know.
Old Bert always stops by same time. He gets one of each, same time every night. Good old Bert.
Yes, sir. I wonder if you go ahead with your story.
Oh, yeah. Well, this car pulled up and the fella got out. He walked over to the bench, started talking to the first man. They got in an argument.
How do you know that?
What?
Well, how do you know they were arguing?
Well, I could see you standing over there, waving their arms around. I could even hear some of the yelling. It wasn't no trick at all to see that they were having some kind of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Could you hear what the trouble was about?
No, just a lot of yelling and waving. Could hear no outright word.
Mm-hmm. You want to go ahead, please?
Well, next thing I knew was when the fella got out of the car, started swinging at the other one.
That was the victim?
Yeah, one who was shot.
All right.
Well, you just bet the guy tackled more than he could handle. The victim fella started to clean up on this other one. He just started to mop up the street with it.
I see.
That's when the guy who was waiting in the car got out and run over to help his friends, you see.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them kind of struggled around for a while, then the one from the car pulled the gun. Bang, bang. 2 shots. First guy dropped right down on the sidewalk. The other 2 got in the car and took off. Went roaring down Normandy. That way.
Can you describe the second car?
Well, not too good. I just got a glance at it. I wasn't paying a lot of attention at first. The time I figured I should take a good look at it was gone.
I see. Now, how about the men driving it?
What do you want to know?
Can you describe them?
Not good.
Well, if you tell us just what you can, Mr. Cates, it'd help.
Sure. First one was a tall, lanky fellow. He didn't weigh much, sort of string bean.
Mm-hmm. How tall would you say?
Oh, I don't know, close to 6'3", maybe 6'2", round in there. He's a tall one.
About how old?
23, 25. I couldn't tell that too good.
I see. What about his coloring? Was he light or dark, do you remember?
Light. He was blonde.
How about his clothes?
He had on a pair of jeans. One of them jackets, made out of the same kind of material, rivets like on them.
Mm-hmm.
Were real tight jeans. Both of them were wearing them.
Anything else you can tell us about the tall man?
No.
Was he the driver of the car?
Oh, yeah. He was the one who did the shooting, the tall fellow.
Could you see the gun?
Yeah, but not good.
Do you remember whether it was a revolver or an automatic?
Well, it looked like a revolver to me.
All right, now what about the other man?
He was shorter than the first one. No runt, but, shorter. Guess anybody would look small next to him.
About how tall was he?
Oh, he's about 5'9", 5'10". Give a couple, take a couple.
All right. How was he built?
Sort of light, though maybe 140.
Anything else about the 2 men? Did either of them wear glasses, do you remember?
No, not so as I could see. Might have taken them off, before they got out of the car. Might have, but I didn't see them when the fight started.
Did either of them use a name that you could hear?
I told you before I couldn't hear anything they said. There's just a lot of yelling when the fight started.
All right.
Wasn't anything special about the 2 fellas to make them stand out. One tall, the other short. No big reason to remember them.
Afraid you got it wrong, mister.
Huh?
We got a reason. We made arrangements for Andrew Cates to come down to the office and look through the mug books. The rest of the neighborhood was checked again, but we were unable to find anyone else who'd witnessed the shooting. While we'd been talking to Cates, a team of detectives from Homicide Detail had gone out to the victim's house. They didn't find anyone at home, but when they spoke to the neighbors, they were told that Matthew Denton's wife was in a hospital. Frank and I checked with her doctor and found out that she was in the maternity ward. He recommended that we delay talking to the woman as long as possible since she was in a weakened condition. From the hospital records, we found that Denton was employed by an advertising agency. We checked with the nurses on duty and found that he'd left the hospital with another man. They gave us a description of him, but they were unable to identify him for us. We asked that they call the office in the event the man returned to the hospital. Frank and I went back to the office and checked out. The next morning, Wednesday, at 8:40 a.m., we were back in the squad room. Yes, sir. You looking for somebody?
I'd like to see somebody about this story in the paper.
Which one is that, sir?
About the shooting last night, corner Normandy and Willowbrook.
All right. What did you want to talk about?
Are you the officers handling the case?
Yes, sir.
My name's Sterling Hall. I think maybe I can help you out.
All right. Want to have a seat, Mr. Hall?
Sure
here,
thing,
right here's
thanks.
fine. Sit right here.
Thank you.
It's my partner, Frank Smith. My name's Friday.
How do you do, Mr. Smith?
All right. What do you got?
Well, it says here in the paper where Denton left the hospital with the man. It says you're looking for him.
That's right.
Well, you don't have to look no further. I'm him.
You were with Denton last night, were you?
Just said that.
All right. How long were you together?
Till about 9:30. They dropped him off at the bus stand right where he was shot.
All right. I wonder if you could start at the beginning and tell us the whole story, would you?
Sure thing. Well, you see, I got a lady friend, same hospital as Denton's wife. I was over there last night to say hello. I brought her a box of caramels and said hello.
Uh-huh.
Well, I was on my way out the place, and I stopped off for a cup of coffee in that little old shop they got there. You know, where they has the gifts, books on what to name the baby and all.
Yeah, I know it is.
Well, I was having a cup of coffee, and this here Denton come in. He wanted to buy a little plant for his wife. They just had a baby. Wanted to send her something.
I see.
Now, we got to talking and I had a cup of coffee. It turned out he didn't have his car, so I asked him if I could give him a ride home. He was kind of nervous and all. New father.
Yes, sir.
We left the hospital, and he said it wasn't necessary for me to take him all the way home. Said for me to just drop him off at the bus stand. Told me there was one right near his house.
All right.
Well, on the way, we was following this car, and all of a sudden it stops. No signal, nothing. Just slams on the brakes, and we rammed into it. Well, didn't hardly do no damage to the other car. Broke one of my headlights is all, but didn't hurt the other car at all.
I see. Go ahead.
Two fellers got out, and they walked back, and they started a little ruckus. Said we was speeding and driving reckless, all that kind of stuff, real loud. And this Denton, he'd tell them to shove off. Said their car wasn't hurt at all, and said not to make a big thing out of it. He told them it was their fault anyway.
Were you still in the car?
No, we got out to see what damage had occurred.
I see.
These two guys started to get rugged now, like they wanted to start some real trouble, and Denton said if they wanted to make a problem out of it, the thing to do was to call the cops and make a complaint.
What'd they say to that?
Nothing, just said to forget it, and then they got in the car and shoved off.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't see him again, but I got to thinking about it this morning when I saw the story in the paper. You think it might have been one of them two who shot Denton?
Well, we don't know, sir. Can you give us a description of the men?
Sure thing. Now, one of them was real tall. The other one was about my height.
It'd be about 5'8"?
5'8" and 3/4.
All right. Can you give us a description of the car?
Yes, sir. It was a light blue Ford. One of them new ones, you know, with the plastic on top.
Yes, sir.
I took a good look at it. Matter of fact, I kind of thought there might be some trouble about the accident. I didn't want to be out on a limb with my insurance company, so I made sure.
Yeah.
I got the license number.
Well, I got a complete description of the two men. Frank checked DMV on the license number. 5 minutes later, he came back to the office.
Joe?
Yeah, you got it?
If you find out who the car belongs to, shouldn't be anything to pick up them two fellers.
It's not going to be that easy.
Hmm?
The car was stolen.
Before Frank and I left the office, we made arrangements for Sterling Hall to check the mug books in the hope that he might be able to identify the suspects. At 11:20 a.m., we drove over to talk to the registered owner of the stolen car. He told us that the vehicle had been taken from a parking lot the day before and that he'd made an immediate report on it to the police. Additional broadcasts were gotten out on the automobile and on the suspects. That afternoon, we drove over and talked to the victim's wife. She told us that the money and the express checks Denton had been carrying were for the payment of the hospital and the doctor bills. We questioned her about her husband's friends and associates. Although we had the story given us by Sterling Hall, it seemed unlikely that the man was killed as the result of an argument over a minor traffic accident. We spent the rest of the day interviewing people who knew the victim. From them, we learned that Denton was well-liked and he was respected. He took an active interest in neighborhood clubs and events. The more we went into his background, the more convinced we became that he'd been killed by the men in the stolen Ford. 2 days passed. On Saturday, May 12th, the vehicle was found abandoned. A stakeout was placed on it, and when no one approached it, the crew from Leighton Prince went over the car. They found several partial fingerprints, but not enough for classification. The prints were photographed and held for evidence. Frank and I continued to work on the killing. A month went by without additional information turning up. On Tuesday, June 19th, we got a call from burglary detail. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, nothing. Where'd he come from? Well, it might check out. No, we'll pick him up. Yeah. Okay, right, thanks. Mac over in burglary.
Yeah?
He says they just picked up a guy for receiving.
Uh-huh.
Tried to make a deal. Said if he got a break, he might be able to help us clean up something.
Say what it was?
Yeah, he did. The Denton killing. We left the office. We went over to room 45. We talked with the officers who'd picked up the suspect. They told us that they found a large quantity of stolen automobile supplies in his possession. We took him to the interrogation room for questioning. For almost an hour, he remained silent.
How about it, Keneally? Going to give us a hand? Keneally?
All right, come on, stand up. Let's go.
Giving up, huh?
No, we'll be back.
Where you taking me?
Back to burglary, and they can book you.
Main jail?
Yep.
But you guys are all through with me, huh?
Yeah, for now. We'll talk to you again.
Well, you won't get any more.
Tell me something, will you?
What?
A little while ago, you said you knew something about a killing. Now you shut up and won't give us the time of day. Why?
I told that other cop if I got a break, you get one.
You know we can't make deals.
No, that's going to cost you.
You're going to take an installment.
How do you figure that?
You said you knew something about Matthew Denton's murder, isn't that right?
I don't remember that far back.
We do, and we can prove you did. You're up on a receiving rap now. That's bad enough. But if we can tag you with holding information, we'll make you as an accessory after the fact.
You mean you'll try?
I think we'll make it.
Well, from here, it's got another color.
Well, let's see how it comes out, huh? Come on, let's go. Down this way.
I know. What's the tab for being accessory?
5 years.
Okay, let's go back.
Huh?
I'll tell you all about it.
You are listening to Dragnet, the authentic story of your police force in action.
In regular or king size, you can get 'em either way. The best smoke ever made's the Chesterfield you buy today. Smokers coast to coast are changing, it's a cinch to do. Here's all you have to say to get the one that's best for you. Chesterfield's for me, Chesterfield's for me. You just say it's Chesterfield's for me.
Friends, for your vacation, take along plenty of Chesterfields. Buy them with a carton. Chesterfield king size at the new low price. Chesterfield regular. What a pair. They're the quality twins. The same highest quality. The same low nicotine. Either way you like them, they're best for you. Smoke Chesterfield. It's America's most popular two-way cigarette.
We returned Harold Keneally to the interrogation room. We put out a call to Gene Bechtel to come and take a statement. Keneally asked that we send out for some coffee for him. Frank went down the hall and brought back 3 cups. After he'd finished his, Keneally leaned back.
It's good coffee, strong. I like it that way.
Yeah, well, now that you've had the clatch, let's start the story. What do you say?
Sure. What do you want to know?
Who are the 2 men?
I don't know.
Now, you going to start this all over again, are you?
I'm giving it to you on the line. I don't know who they are.
What do you know about them?
Not much. A couple of guys. They're doing pretty good with radios.
You one of their customers?
Yeah, me and a half a dozen others.
You know who they are?
Well, you're not going to get the names.
All right, let's get back to the 2 men. Why do you think they had something to do with Denton?
Well, about 3 weeks ago, they was in my place, had 5 new radios, the kind with the bar to pick the stations, you know, like the new cads.
Yeah, I know.
I had 5 of them, want to turn them over.
Yeah.
Well, the price they were asking was way out. I told them so they'd have to find someplace else to drop them.
All right.
Told me there was a beef, they had to get out of town, so they needed the money to swing it.
That still doesn't add up to Denton's killers, does it?
Well, it will.
All right, come on, tell us.
Well, I went out of the office for a couple of minutes, told them I had to make a phone call.
Yeah?
I got a mic hidden in the room, found out it helps in business once in a while. I turned it on and listened to the guys talk.
Go ahead.
They were yakking about some guy that got shot. The big fellow was saying there was no other way to handle it, so that he didn't like it either, but there just wasn't any other way. Big thing then was to get some money and just beat town.
Mm-hmm.
I waited outside for a couple more minutes, but they didn't say anything, so I went back in. I told them I couldn't swing the radio deal.
What'd they do then?
Well, they said they had to dump him someplace. If I couldn't take him, they'd find somebody who would. Told them to go ahead.
And what do these guys look like?
A couple of bums, one tall, the other short, wearing those jeans with the coats made out of the same cloth, you know.
You had dealings with them before?
Yeah, a couple of times.
You know their names?
No. All I know is the big one's called Dusty. I don't know the last part.
How about the other one?
Nothing there.
Anything else about them?
Well, they're both lushes.
Yeah?
The big one, this Dusty, always got a flask on his hip.
You mean a bottle, huh?
No, a metal flask like they used in Prohibition. This one's all beat up, dented. It's all dirty. But I never seen Dusty without it. Both of them all the time nipping at it.
All right.
You know where these guys live?
No, someplace downtown. They got a pad there. I don't know where it is, though.
How do you know it's downtown, then?
Well, I don't know for sure. It's just a guess.
Did you ever hear either one of them say anything about a job?
Not those 2. They never done a day's work in their lives. The only thing they're good at is lifting radios. They wouldn't work steady if stealing was legal.
That all they take, radios?
All I've ever seen. Guess they got a gimmick. Figure they can make a living with them. Why change?
Mm-hmm.
I guess they do pretty good. I don't know. I paid them enough times.
All right. Anything else you can tell us?
No.
They work with anybody else, do you know?
Not that I've ever heard.
How about close friends?
None.
They say when they'd be back to your place?
No, they don't have a regular route. When they pick up some things, they come in. If they got nothing to sell, I don't see them.
When'd you see them last?
The time I told you about.
They still around?
Well, I don't know. Rumble says they are. I haven't seen them myself.
You know where we can reach them?
No, you don't make an appointment with them.
You know if these guys have ever been arrested?
Well, we never talked about it. Where they seem to feel about cops, though, you sure figure they fell.
They from L.A., do you know?
I don't think so. Never heard them say. Only done business with them a couple of times. We never got real buddy-buddy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't go that chummy set much.
All right, Keneally. Anything more you want to tell us?
I guess that's it.
All right, come on. Why don't you check the books?
Yeah. Hey, can you spring another cup of that coffee? It's sure good. About the best I ever tasted. Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah?
There's one more thing about the guys you're after.
All right.
take it easy with them. Like I told you, they're both lushes. I think they're off their rockers.
Yeah, we'll watch it.
Well, you better. They're packing heavy.
Yeah.
Any way you slice it, they're loaded.
Harold Keneally went through the mug books, but he was unable to find a picture of the two suspects. The name Dusty was checked through the moniker file without result. Information was forwarded to George Brereton up at CII Sacramento, and a supplemental APB was gotten out. We spent the rest of the day with officers from burglary detail going over reports. We found that they'd been working on a string of car radio thefts for the past several weeks. When we compared notes with them, it seemed more than possible that their two suspects were the same men we wanted for the killing of Matthew Denton. However, they were no closer to the men than we were. From the reports, we were able to figure that the pair was still in Los Angeles. That evening, we met with Captain Lorman, Captain Bernard, and Chief Detective Thad Brown. We worked out a system of rolling stakeouts that would cover most of the territory where the thieves had been working. 3 additional teams of men from burglary were assigned to help us, and on Wednesday, June 20th, the operation was started. For 3 days, there was no action. Thefts from autos continued, but when they were checked out, the method of operation used eliminated any suspects that we were looking for. On Sunday, June 24th, we got a call that a man answering the descriptions of one of the thieves had been seen in the vicinity of Beverly Boulevard and Elmwood Avenue. Frank and I left our position in the stakeout, and we drove out to the area.
Should be a couple of more blocks.
Yeah, we just passed Ridgewood Place. You better take it easy. Next block, we can start cruising.
Yeah. See anything?
No. Want to take a left here?
All right. Doesn't look like it.
Well, let's go up a couple more blocks.
All right. Sure be a break if we nail him tonight.
Yeah.
A little rough on the study time.
How's it going?
No, I don't know, Joe. Times I don't think I'm ever going to make sergeant.
What are you doing now?
You mean studying?
Yeah.
Legal procedure.
Well, you should know that.
Well, the practical stuff, yeah. It's putting it into legal language that makes it rough on me.
Yeah, I had the same trouble.
I haven't been able to hit the books for the past week.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, nothing. Keep going. What'd you say?
I said I hadn't hit the books. I missed a couple of lectures, too.
Well, you're never going to make it that way.
That's what Faye says.
Wait a minute.
Huh?
Slow down.
What do you got?
Up there. See? Next block on the left. About 50 feet on the other side of the street line.
I don't see anything.
Looked to me like somebody trying to get into a car. I'm not sure.
Well, let's check it.
All right. Just up ahead there.
Yeah. See anything?
No, looked like somebody on the other side. Better pull up. We'll take a look.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
All right. I'll cover the other side.
Take it easy. If it's the one we want, they're heavy.
All right.
All right, mister, let's hold it right there.
What?
Stand where you are.
You talking to me?
That's right.
What are you causing me trouble for? I didn't do nothing.
We didn't say you did.
How about it, mister? This your car?
Certainly it's my car. Who do you think it belonged to?
You got the white slip?
It's in the machines, right out in plain sight, where it's supposed to be.
You've been drinking, haven't you?
Small wonder you officers don't do better at solving crimes. I had a couple, yeah.
What's your name?
I don't see that's any business of yours. All I'm trying to do is get into my car. I'm not causing any trouble.
What's your name?
It's Kyle, Peter Kyle.
You got the keys to this car?
Matter of fact, I haven't. That's why I'm having so much trouble getting in. If I had the keys, I could just flip the door open and drive off.
Frank?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Just want to see what you're carrying.
Watch it, Joe. All right, mister, come on. Get up.
I'm doing like you say I'm doing.
Try it again, Frank.
Yeah. Come on. Get your hands back. He's clean, Joe.
All right. Turn around.
I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to shoot.
Yeah, sure.
Honest, you gotta believe me. I didn't mean it.
Come on down here under the light. All right, now stand still.
Yeah, matches the description pretty good.
Where's your partner?
I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. I just hit the guy. I just got in a fight with him. Dusty did the shooting. He did it. I didn't. I just got in a fight.
All right, now calm down. Where is he?
I knew you'd catch us. I knew it all the time. I kept telling Dusty we had to get out of town. We got to go. I kept telling him all the time. I was telling him.
Well, where is he?
Home.
Where's that?
He's the one who did it. I just got in a fight. Dusty's the one who shot, not me.
Where do you live, mister?
Down on 4th. That's where old Dusty is. Old, safe Dusty. He said we didn't have to leave. He said you'd never catch us.
All right, let's go.
Old Dusty is always right. Always knows what he's doing all the time. Never makes a mistake. Not old Dusty.
Yeah, well, he made one this time, didn't he?
story you have just heard is true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On November 6th, trial was held in Department 95, Superior Court of the State of California, in and for the County of Los Angeles. In a moment, the results of that trial.
L&M goes king size. Yes, L&M goes king size. Now, L&M is king size as well as regular. Both have the same low price. Both have the miracle tip for the effective filtration you need. Yes, it's the filter that counts. And L&M has the best. You get much more flavor, much less nicotine, a light and mild smoke. Yes, this is it. L&M filters. Just what the doctor ordered. Buy a carton, king size or regular, both at the same low price. L&M filters, America's highest quality and best filter tip cigarette.
Peter Gregory Kyle and Jesse Haywood Poole were tried and convicted of murder in the second degree and petty theft, 18 counts. They received punishment as prescribed by law. Petty theft is punishable by imprisonment for a period of not more than 1 year in the county jail. Second-degree murder is punishable by imprisonment for a period of from 5 years to life. You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department. Technical advisors, Captain Jack Donahoe, Sergeant Marty Wynn, Sergeant Vance Frazier. Heard tonight were Ben Alexander, Vic Rodman, Jack Crucian. Script by John Robinson. Music by Walter Schumann. Hal Gibney speaking.
Watch an entirely different Dragnet case history each week on your local NBC television station. Please check your newspapers for the day and time. Chesterfield has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
Dane Clark stars in Crime and Peter Chambers tonight on the NBC Radio Network.
When we talk about what Jack Webb created over the years after Dragnet, it's amazing when you look at it. He was the executive producer of G.E. True, an anthology series, ran for 33 episodes. He also brought wholesale changes to 77 Sunset Strip, that show, and he produced a lot of shows. In 1967, he brought back Dragnet for a mid-season series, and Harry Morgan joined him as Officer Bill Gannon. Ben Alexander, he wanted to bring Ben Alexander back, but he was working on an ABC series, Felony Squad. It aired from 1967 until April of 1970. It was Dragnet 1967, 68, whichever. And then they launched Adam 12 through his production company. And then perhaps one of the funniest things that they ever did, the Tonight Show sketch. If you've never seen the Copper Clapper Caper on the Tonight Show, I'll try to remember to post that one of these days. But then he finally focused on expanding Mark's 7 productions and did a lot of additional shows. The DA, starring Robert Conrad and Harry Morgan. O'Hara, United States Treasury. David Jansen starring in that. And just a bunch of different shows. Emergency, that probably was his last big thing. Then he did a number of other shows. Heck Ramsey, a 2-season component of the NBC mystery movie, Project UFO. He finally ended up doing other things and finally brought up Dragnet for 1983 run of the series. And that was probably it for him. Dan Aykroyd, Tom Hanks in that movie parody and homage to Webb titled Dragnet. Harry Morgan reprised his role there, who had by that time become a captain of detectives. He died of an apparent heart attack, December 23rd, 1982. He was just 62 years of age. Let's go back to some earlier Jack Webb, before the success of Dragnet, when he was Pat Novak for hire.
This is Dennis James. Civil defense preparedness is important to all of us living in today's nuclear age. For information on the importance of first aid training in protecting your home and family, here is a message from Leo A. Hoig, Director of the Office of Civil and Defense Mobilization.
First aid training can prepare you to meet emergencies quickly when time is precious. If we are ever attacked, medically trained personnel will be busy aiding the desperately ill and injured. Your first aid training could save the life of a member of your family, a friend, a neighbor. You can't always count on someone else helping. Will you know what to do? Take the first step today. Enroll in a Red Cross first aid course. Knowledge of first aid is good common sense and good civil defense. Be sure you are prepared for any emergency.
First aid, one of the most important things you could ever learn because it could save your life or the life of a loved one. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, let's go back 77 years. Jack Webb as Pat Novak for hire.
The American Broadcasting Company presents Pat Novak for hire. Sure, I'm Pat Novak. For hire. I got a couple of boats down on Pier 19 on the San Francisco waterfront. Sometimes I rent them out, but I found out it's easy to keep my budget healthy by risking my health in other ways. So I work around doing odd jobs. You can take that any way you like. Not the best you can say for it is that it beats begging. At least you don't always limp. If your luck's in, you can keep a half lap ahead of the bill collectors if you don't let it go to your head. I did once. I helped a guy who owned 7 hotels convince a blonde in San Rafael that her memory wasn't that good after all. The payoff was too rich for my blood. I got the idea that with that kind of money, I could take over the gambling joints up around Lake Tahoe. It took them 3 days to show me I was wrong. I'd worked my way down from the gold-plated joints to a place called the Broken T, where they still recognized a dollar as currency. I was beginning to figure how long it'd take me to walk back to the bay when help came along. He was a little guy with a pair of eyes I wouldn't trust with anything I wanted again. The kind of quiet, dark clothes that'd make it easy to get lost in an alley. He knew me.
Well, Novak, not doing so hard, are you?
I eat.
You want to make a quick buck?
There must be a reason. Tell me that first.
I'm hot. I shook the wheels down for a flock of dough.
You call that trouble?
Not yet. But I like to look ahead. How do I know these guys like it that I got all their money?
If it hurts you, give it back. They'll take it.
I got a better idea. I want to take it down to San Francisco.
Look, Crocker owns the Southern Pacific. If you got an urge to travel, talk to him. If you got a proposition, spread it out.
I'm driving down. It's a lonely road. I want you to go along as a bodyguard.
If these guys are out to hijack your road, 2 of us won't stop them any more than 1. They come in bunches when they want to.
Do you want the job, or you going to talk me out of it?
I'll ride down with you for $200.
You charge a lot for a ride.
You said it's risky, remember?
Okay, here's 50. You get the rest in San Francisco. I see you outside in 5 minutes. My name's Brown. I'll be waiting in my car.
Brown, huh?
Yeah, Brown. John Brown. Want to make something of it?
How can you? was a quiet guy. We drove along for a couple of hours, and you could have repeated all he said on one deep breath. I kept watching the cars along the road, waiting for the muscle boys to show up, but nothing happened. Pretty soon I got the feeling that they weren't after him at all. I guess he'd seen too many movies. I finished off a pack of cigarettes as we got down out of the mountains and got him to stop at a roadside joint for reloads. He wouldn't leave the car, so I was all alone when a girl came up to me at the bar.
You going down to San Francisco?
Something like that.
You got room for me?
How far are you going?
That depends on who I'm with.
You might be handy at that. Car's without a heater. I don't have to own it.
So you'll keep one hand on the wheel.
So you better ask the guy who does. He's sitting out in the car.
Why don't he come in?
Don't build him up so fast. I got a car, too.
Where'd you get it? Steal it?
You selling medical insurance, maybe?
Why?
You're going to need it if you keep elbowing into my face.
Speaking of elbows, what do you mean trying to muscle in on my dame?
You two together?
Yeah, why?
That's what I've been wondering. Why? So long, sucker.
What do you make of that?
I'd say you're out. You don't have to slide.
You're to blame for this.
Yeah. And tomorrow I'm going to make it rain.
I can start a storm right now.
Go right ahead. You got the wind.
Wait.
You cooled him nice, stranger. What started that?
Bad habits.
Yeah?
Uh-huh. Too many cigarettes. I guess I didn't have to hit the guy, but I was all geared up over the ride. I had to take it out on somebody. Outside, the air was cold and clear. A river made soothing noises in the darkness. I figured it'd be an easy night from then on in, but Brown was having the fidgets.
Come on, Novak. Let's get going.
Where's the dame?
What dame?
One came out here, a hitchhiker, wanted to ride to town.
I didn't see any dame. Come on, let's go.
Oh, that's queer.
What's queer? Let's go, let's go.
Suddenly you're nervous. What's the matter?
When I need a doctor, Novak, I know where to find one.
Yeah? Can you find one whose shakes synchronize with yours? Otherwise, he's going to have a tough time with your pulse. From there on into town, John Brown didn't say a word. When we came across the Bay Bridge, he stopped in the terminal and made a phone call. Then we drove up to his place, a big corner apartment house up near the Civic Center. He told me to wait in the car while he went in to put away the money. I sat and smoked cigarettes and watched the dawn begin to light up the long, empty streets. I must have been there half an hour before anything happened. Then it all began to happen at once, starting with Hellman. A homicide detective with a grudge against the world that he takes out on me. I hope I didn't keep you waiting, Novak. Well, I got you out of bed, Hellman. Can't be insomnia. That takes conscience. You'd be the sort to know about that. Mind if I let the car over? Why not? I didn't steal this one. I prefer roadsters.
John Brown, huh? Now, there's a name. Where have I heard that before?
That's a foreign name. Polish, I think.
That's not where I heard it. It was broadcast in connection with a stolen car.
Try again. The keys, see?
So maybe he was careless and left his keys in his car.
Yeah, maybe I'm whimsical and changed my name to Brown. Go on, Hellman. You can't pin anything on me.
No. Give me the keys.
What for?
I'm looking in the trunk. We got a tip.
Not on this crate. We just got in from Tahoe. Nobody knows we're here.
Sure. And if you aren't here, I guess there's nothing in the trunk either.
I'll bite. What'd you find?
A body. A girl's body. I'm not intruding, am I?
Not on me. You better get Brown. He's in the apartment there.
Sure. But won't you be lonely?
Look, Brown hired me to ride down from Tahoe with him. He cleaned up at the tables and water protection for his role. It's his car and his girl. Let's get him.
All right, come on. Oh, Brown listed. Nervous. Upset. Maybe you need a rest.
Framed.
Sure, somebody else did it. Shame on them. Come on, Novak.
The girl was a pickup, a hitchhiker. Why should he kill her?
I got a better question for you. Where can I get a lawyer?
I saw a purse with the body. Let's look it over.
Don't tell me you didn't rob her, too.
purse didn't turn up much. Some keys, a little mad money, makeup stuff. A letter to Alice Stone with an address out in the Potrero district. The letter was no good, just a guy trying to patch up a split. I had a hunch that Brown must have known Alice. That was the only way the killing made sense. I needed to get some dope on Brown. I needed to know about Alice. Hellman took Brown's address off the registration card, and I couldn't see where that had helped me any. No one had seen us together all the way down from Tahoe. Even if Brown were picked up, he could swear he'd never seen me before. With the car listed as stolen, he was a cinch to prove it. Now, I needed help bad. So I started looking for my old friend Jocko Madigan, an ex-doctor turned boozer who had more connections around town than the water department. I ran him down in a trap on Ellis Street trying to hold back the recession in liquor sales.
Hello, Patsy, my boy. Join me. This is the first one today.
Look, I'm in trouble, Jocko.
You're in trouble. Think how I feel.
What's the matter? Sick?
No, just worried. I was reading in the paper here that the good ship Clyde Harris went down off the New England coast last night with 10,000 cases of scotch on board.
There's some left. Listen, Jocko, I'm in a jam.
When did that become news?
I was up at Tahoe, and a guy hired me to drive him down here.
He didn't know you.
It turns out the car is stolen, and there's a body in it. And the guy's disappeared.
I don't blame him.
The body belonged to a girl named Alice Stone at this address.
10,000 cases of scotch. Can you imagine that?
And the way I figure it, the girl must have known the killer. I'm not very sure that John Brown, who claims his car was stolen, is innocent either. It's mighty strange that he left the car keys lying around.
What do you want me to do?
Get on the grapevine. Find out if this John Brown is tied up in the rackets. The same for Alice Stone. Find out if they ran around with each other. Whatever you can about them.
All right, Patsy, but you'll have to wait. I've got to catch up on my drinking first.
Can't you lay off this stuff for a little while?
Are you telling me how to live my life again? You who consort with murderers, car thieves, and women of dubious ways? Push the bottle over here.
Look, Jocko. See if you can put the finger on a neat little guy with a pair of con man's eyes. Black hair, toy mustache, and dresses like Dapper Dan. About 150 pounds.
Imagine you trying to tell me how to live. You who've got more bad habits than a dope fiend's convention.
The guy goes for dark, expensive clothes. He doesn't talk much unless he has to.
When I drink, I get the hangover. All you have to do is breathe regularly, and trouble's all over town. You had any social conscience, you'd go somewhere and hang yourself. I can't understand how I tolerate having you around.
Will you get a line on the guy for me?
From the way you described him, it ought to be a lay-down cinch. There's only about 10,000 men in town who'd fit that description. Will 100 or so of them be enough?
I want one. It's a long gamble. But try, will you, Jocko?
Imagine that, with the ocean full of ships hauling guano, bones, cattle, oil, lumber, pineapples, sugar, old newspapers, and gunny sacks. The one boat that has to sink.
Will you get on it?
Well, there's no hurry. It's only you at stake. So long, lover.
I grabbed some breakfast, picked up a cab, and went out to the address of Alice Stone. It matched a wooden house that looked 2 years older in Utah that was trying to lie about it with a new plaster front and a fresh set of doorknobs. It looked like it had been built by an amateur who read the blueprints upside down. A dame answered the door. She was about tie-pin high to a 6-footer, and she had red hair. The heavy, wavy kind that made you think she must be healthy. But that wasn't hard to do anyway. The way she filled out her morning coat didn't leave much to worry about, except the seams. She could talk, too.
Neighborhood's improving.
You know Alice Stone?
Sure, she lives here. I might have known she'd see you first.
Who are you?
My name's Skip Harper, and Alice isn't home. What can you do with that?
How do you know I want to? Maybe I'm a salesman.
Well, look, mister, you aren't fooling anybody. You look about as much like a salesman as I do a decoy duck. Now, what do you want with Alice? Or do you have to be particular?
I can't use her. She's dead.
A salesman. With 5 o'clock shadow at 10... You say dead?
Yeah. They found her in a car downtown this morning.
You're a cop.
You're wrong. Why should it worry you?
What do you mean?
You know who did it?
I don't know anything. I just don't like jams. Tell me how it happened.
We were coming down from Tahoe. She was in a roadside hamburger trap. She asked me for a ride, and I sent her out to talk to a guy who owns the car. The next time I saw her, she was tucked away in the trunk.
Why'd a guy kill her, just like that?
That's what I'm after. Maybe he just didn't like dames. There's probably a better reason.
You think maybe he knew her?
Yeah. That's where you can earn a gold star. Did you know anybody by the name of John Brown?
Describe him.
He was playing the wheel at the Broken Tee up near Tahoe. Smooth little guy, about 2 sizes over a jockey. Waxed mustache, a pair of eyes you could use to freeze fish.
So, that one. All right, I know him.
Give me an introduction.
His name's Brown, all right. I didn't know his first name before. He's a small-time hustler around town. Used to take Alice out now and then when he felt like tearing up a nightclub. Cops arrest him yet?
Hellman, the homicide dick, is knocking on his door about now. I don't expect him to be home.
No, he won't be. He has hideouts.
Name some of them.
I'm afraid to.
He can't hurt you. He's too busy playing cops and robbers.
You don't know Brown.
I gotta get to know him. Give.
I don't want to get mixed up in anything.
Neither do I, but I am. I need Brown.
Why don't you forget Brown?
That'd be bad manners.
What's wrong with bad manners? I know some that are fun.
Yeah, you would.
More fun than Brown will ever show you.
You'll keep. He won't.
Come here. Will this keep? You think?
You have a nice way of changing the subject. But still, where's Brown's hideout?
I won't tell you. He'll kill me.
Yeah, that's a gamble. I'm on the spot, and that's a fact. Talk to me.
I hate men.
Never mind your hobby. Give me Brown.
I hate you, you big, ugly, muscle-bound.
Brown.
You're hurting me.
Make me stop. Tell me where Brown is.
All right. Here's a hideout, a little shack out near the beach.
Narrow it down.
Let go, I'm telling you. And I hope it's the last thing you hear.
From Skip's place out to the beach wasn't much of a drive. I went up and over Twin Peaks, watching the city and the bay spread out beneath the road like a giant map. The sun was working for the Chamber of Commerce that day, and the whole region was glowing. Every backyard was full of clothes blowing in the wind. As the highway neared the beach, it began to turn up bunches of kids on their way to cash in on the weather. John Brown's hideaway was one of those old pioneer shacks built out near the ocean in the old days by guys who wanted to get away from it all. It was painted a weather-beaten brown, tilted a little on one side, and it looked like something that had been washed ashore in a bad storm a long while ago. I knocked on the door, but all that bought me was echoes, so I made a door out of one of the side windows. The inside of the place looked like something out of a hobo jungle. None of the furniture matched. The best piece in sight would have made a junk man sneer. There was a broken-down setup for poker and a tired double bed, and after that you were practically on your own. The kitchen didn't turn up anything but a flock of ants and some empty bottles. I began to get the feeling Brown must have had 2 hideouts, or else he'd left town. It shows you how wrong you can be.
All right, hustler. Reach.
You walk soft.
Practice makes perfect. Turn around slowly.
Mm-hmm.
How come you're working without a gun?
Who are you?
This is my place, so you tell me.
My name's Novak. I'm looking for a guy named Brown.
You're all right so far. I'm Brown. Who tipped you off I'd be here?
I don't remember.
No, you don't remember. So let me guess. It was that punk Venanti.
Never heard of him.
Never mind the rube routine. You got hustler written all over you. What did Venanti send you here for? Does he think I know too much?
If I was sent to rub you, do you think I'd come without a gun? Start using your head.
I like the way it's working. Tell me more.
I can't tell you anything. You don't fit my blueprints.
Don't get smart with me, hustler. Venanti sent you. Tell me what for.
If you're Brown, you don't need any new worries. You got an armful already.
I'm feeling no pain.
The cops have your car down at the station.
What for?
They don't like 'em with dead bodies inside.
Now, steady now. Let's have that again.
A dame named Alice Stone was found stuffed in your trunk. You're hotter than 4 stoves. Laugh yourself out of that.
If you know so much, why aren't you yelling copper?
Don't worry. They're on their way. I'm trying to get the key to the killing.
If this turns out to be a frame...
Look, I saw the guy who did it. I'm the only one who did. That's better than your gun, so treat me nice.
If you saw the murder, you can help me out.
Sure. What do I get for it, a merit badge?
Yeah, things are coming too fast. I got to do some checking.
You better spill what you know, or else I'm liable to forget mine.
You got a nice lever there, hustler. If you can back up your talk. If the dame's dead.
Look who's bargaining.
Before I tell you anything, I need to check around.
Just wait a while. The cops will tell you everything.
I like to find out things for myself.
You will. I got a good grapevine in the county jail.
Now I'll do it the hard way.
You forget I have the lever on you now.
Yeah. Remind me to get scared about that. Try some aspirins for that. Hey!
I woke up twice before I decided to make it stay that way. The house was so quiet I could hear someone playing the piano several houses away. It was a nice, clean sound, neat and full of try. No wise guys in it figuring fancy double crosses. No dead bodies. No policemen who argued with their knuckles instead of their heads. Probably some girl who thought a blackjack was a card game. I lay there listening to the music for a while, and I got up and brushed off my clothes. And there were 3 places I could find Brown. He wouldn't dare go to his home. He wouldn't return to the hideout. That left Skip's place. On the way over, I stopped at a drugstore and phoned Jocko to find out if he'd turned up anything. You left out the hiccups. It went like this.
Hello, you reprobate renegade from all that's good and holy.
Skip the overture. Did you check on those people I asked you about?
Sure, I found out about them. Old Dr. Madigan and his crystal ball. He knows all and he knows all and like that there.
Tighten it up and tell me some.
That girl Alice Stone, you remember?
How can I forget?
She lived with a dame in the Potrero named Skip Harper. Nice people. The landlord served eviction notices every day except legal holidays.
So they liked a good time. Then what?
Then she owns a half interest in a gambling joint around Lake Tahoe. It's not much of a place. They say the roulette wheels have so many magnets hung around them, the nails began to come out of the walls. Her partner runs the joint, and she shows the suckers in from down here.
How'd you make it the wheels crooked?
I have my informants. I have a network of good drinking folk who get around and hear things all the time. You'd be surprised how careless a guy can get with talk when he's got his elbow in a barroom ashtray. Now, as I was saying...
If the wheels are fixed, how come Brown was able to shake the joint down for $50,000?
I don't know how he did it. Maybe he was wired, too. All I know is that they've got better control of the ball than Bob Feller ever had on his best day. It's easy to believe if you know Skip's partner.
Yeah? Introduce me.
Name's Venanti.
What's that again?
The partner's name's Venanti. He's wanted in 8 states and Cuba.
Venanti. I'll remember the name. What'd you get on Brown?
John Brown? Oh, swell guy. Helped free the slaves. A friend of man. A tribute to the
I've
nation.
heard that song. Now let's talk about the local Brown.
A small-time hustler. Petty larceny stuff.
You didn't get any tie-ins with Venanti?
Oh, yeah. He was up at the gambling joint near Tahoe last night. Cleaned the place out. $50,000. That would buy a lot of schnapps.
It's beginning to fit together.
No doubt your mighty intellect has found the key.
I can count up to 10 if I don't wear mittens.
Sometimes 13, I'll bet. Well, who did what to whom?
Brown's got a partner working for him.
You don't say.
I'm going over and shake it out of Brown. He must know where the guy's hiding.
Well, don't go looking into too many auto trunks. Those things bite. So long, lover.
What Jocko told me began to give me some hope. The thing the picture needed was one more man, and a partner for Brown would round it out nicely. Yeah, Brown must have figured someone to try to hijack his role and hired a friend to bring it down to San Francisco. I didn't explain the killing. I didn't explain a lot of things. But it was the lead of the guy who could explain it. I needed Brown. As I gunned the car over the hills toward Skip Harper's place, I began to feel better. I was thinking how Hellman would look when I dumped the killer in his lap. There was a crowd along the street in front of Skip's place. Just as I drew up, Hellman came out on the porch. As I got out of the car, one of the neighbors pointed to me.
Novak, huh? They gave me a description, but I didn't think it was you. The guy they described sounded human.
Your jokes stink, Hellman. Try imitating birds or juggling.
The bird imitations are for you, Novak. You'll be singing to the DA any minute now. Come on in the house.
It's Brown. Where's the dame?
What did you do, kill her, too?
Come off it, Hellman. You can't pin this on me.
I don't have to. The neighbors did it for me.
Why should I kill my alibi?
Because he wasn't. What did you do with the dame, Novak?
Why don't you try thinking for a change?
I do my poor best. For instance, I think you killed the dame in the car and then tried to saw it off on Brown. Then you caught Brown here this morning and killed him.
What for? Or don't you care?
For $50,000. Brown won at the Broken Tee up at Lake Tahoe.
The neighbors saw me come here. I must have seen Brown come here, too, after I'd left.
Nobody saw Brown come. Why didn't you buy a witness, Novak? You can afford it.
The dame's gone?
We haven't looked under the rugs.
How'd you get the dope on Brown winning all that dough?
We phoned Tahoe, bright boy. You've heard about the telephone?
Vaguely. Who'd you talk to?
The police. And then a guy named Venanti. He says he remembers you following Brown out. And that the dame was with you two.
It's a lie.
Sure, but the $50,000 is still missing.
Brown wasn't with me. He was a little guy.
It's the climate. He grew since you two dropped him here this morning.
I need some pictures.
Well, you drop Brown. The dame's going to drive you home. You proposition her on the way to help knock off Brown. She turns you down.
Not those kind of pictures. Are there any photographs around the house?
Yeah, there's some in the bedroom. Why?
Come on, let's look. The way she looked, she'd like cameras.
Here's one on the beach. What's she wearing?
That's a bathing suit. Here's the one. Towel.
Well, look at this nightclub gown. How do they hold those things up?
Thumbtacks. So that's Venanti. Look at the two of them posing in front of their sucker trap.
So what?
He's the guy who did it.
Sure, over the phone.
Did you phone him or he phone you?
He phoned.
You want him?
What for? I got you.
He's here in the city, hiding out at Brown's place at the beach. Here's the address.
What kind of a windy is this, Novak?
Pick him up, will you? He said he was at Tahoe, and he is in the city. It smashes his alibi.
All right, but if you're trying any fancy work...
Are you going after him, or do we waltz some more?
How to hold you?
I'll be around. You know that.
What are you going to do?
I got some cleaning up to do. There was only one place for Venanti to be. I headed the car out Potrero and down Bayshore Highway to the airport. I was betting everything on a hunch. Sometimes that's the way you have to play it. Sometimes hunches pay off. The plane I got was built for hurry. Skip still had her overnight bag in her hand when I walked in on them at the Broken T. Venanti began to act nervous when he saw me. Yeah, but not Skip. I began to wonder if she'd ever known how it felt to be frightened. You'd never guess it from the way she talked.
Hello, Novak. Don't you ever shave?
I had a close one just now.
Doesn't show.
You don't know where to look.
What do you want, Novak?
I got it.
Don't be cryptic, baby. It doesn't become you.
You don't act nervous. Does you care about jail?
Nobody's going to jail, Novak, except you, maybe.
I'd be nervous if I had to explain all those dead bodies back in Frisco.
We don't know anything about dead bodies. We've been up here for hours.
Yeah? I had a hunch that'd be your alibi.
That's no alibi, Novak. It's a fact.
It won't gel, Venanti. You're cooked.
Look, Novak. Brown deserved to die. He killed Alice, and before that he fixed the wires on the wheel so he could break this place. He robbed us of $50,000. We had a right to get it back.
Is that what Venanti told you?
That's the way it happened, Novak. There's $10,000 in it for you, if you can remember it that way, too.
10 grand? Easy there, Vin.
That was a little double talk, baby. He was trying to bribe me to dummy up on you.
Dummy up? I know what happened.
When you get through dreaming, try this for a bedtime story. Venanti hired Brown to pick up the winnings while he ran the table. Then with Brown dead, Venanti was going to fly back here in his private plane for the same alibi he's using now. Only he'd own the Broken T.
You're lying.
Shut up, Vin. Tell me more, Novak.
The plan began to sour up when Alice tried to thumb a ride. Alice knew him, so he killed her. He still needed to kill Brown, but he figured then he could hang the double killings on me. That'd make it even better.
You're on the needle, Novak.
The only trouble was that Brown wasn't home. Ben had to chase him. When we finally found him, Brown was at your place. I don't know what happened there, except that Venanti must have killed Brown before he had a chance to talk.
How was that? I'd gone to the store.
So when you come back, Brown's dead, and Venanti tells you he did it to recover the money.
Yeah. So you were going to double-cross me, baby.
He's lying, I tell you.
See if you can prove it to a jury.
I should have known.
In case you get any fancy ideas about trying to lie out of it, I got a witness to feel the motor you're playing. It's still hot.
That 10 grand offer still stands.
I need you to clear me.
Yeah. And I could use the sole ownership of this joint.
You wouldn't rat on me.
Oh, watch me, baby. I'll let you rot in jail.
Novak, I'll make it $25,000 if you help me quiet this dame.
You would, Vin? Start out by quieting this.
They were lousy shots. They both lived. That is, Venanti lived until he got a bad case of asthma in a San Quentin gas chamber. Skip got off with a flock of scars and some good advice from the judge to stay away from questionable characters. But advice is free, and Skip was the kind who went after the dough, so I see her now and then. She's gone honest, I think. Sometimes we toss dice, and I've known her to lose.
Heard on tonight's program were Ben Morris as Novak, John Galbraith as Inspector Hellman, Jack Lewis as Jocko, and Mary Milford as Skip, with Henry Leff, Jerry Walters, Kurt Martell, and Lucille Bliss. Special music by Otto Clare. Listen next week at this same time when over most of these stations, the American Broadcasting Company presents Pat Novak for Hire. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Some very early Jack Webb, Pat Novak for Hire, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Tomorrow, comedy, the first nighter program, the Stan Freberg Show, A Date with Judy, The Magnificent Montague, and we'll cap it all up with another episode of Superman. But right now, let's see what's going on the farm with Claudia.
This is Dennis James. Civil defense preparedness is important to all of us living in today's nuclear age. For information on what you can do to protect your home and family, here is a message from Leo A. Hoig, Director of the Office of Civil and Defense Mobilization.
After an enemy attack on this country, even if your city is not bombed, the radioactive fallout may be so intense that you will have to remain inside your shelter for 2 weeks. Therefore, your shelter should be stocked with a 2-week supply of food, water, and other essential items. Choose foods that will provide a well-balanced diet. Canned fruits, meats, soups, vegetables, packaged cereals, dried foods are a few examples of good energy-building foods that can be stored. Remember, a family prepared aids the community and strengthens the nation in time of war. Make sure you do your part.
Food storage, highly important, not just in case of a national emergency, not just in case of a local emergency, but supply chain shortages, and we've seen our share of those over the last few years, haven't we? Go to civildefensemuseum.org or check with your local county extension office about food storage. Now let's check in with Claudia, 76 years ago, August 3rd, 1940, and see what's going on with Bobby.
Your Coca-Cola bottler presents Claudia, based on the famous play and novels by Rose Franken. Brought to you transcribed Monday through Friday by your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. Relax, and while you're listening, refresh yourself. Have a Coke. And now, Claudia.
Oh, David, I love having you home all day.
I'm not home to play. I'm home to work on these plans for the schoolhouse.
Who cares why? The important thing is you're home.
I'm going to act as if I'm not.
Go ahead. See if I care.
I'm going to lock myself up in this little room and keep my nose to my drawing board all day. You're not going to even see me.
Good.
Oh?
I don't want to see you. I have a million things to do myself. I'm busy up to my ears.
What are you busy with up to your ears?
Thank you notes for the baby's presents.
Poor you.
Oh, poor me is right. Is there anything else in the world worser than writing thank you notes?
Nothing's worser. Not even the word.
Oh, you...
How many do you have left?
Too many, about 14, I guess.
Haven't you written any?
Of course I have. I still don't see why I have to write them all. You're his father. You should write half of them.
I'm going to stay right here and work.
Not so fast. You give me one good reason why you shouldn't write half.
Well, the presents aren't mine. They're addressed to your illustrious son.
Then he should write them.
Then go right upstairs and ask him.
I think I will. I'm half tempted to.
And if you waste any more time before writing them, he'll be old enough to do it himself. So get moving.
All right. And don't nag me. You know, the worst part is I hardly even know half the people who sent me those baby presents.
Well, it should make it twice as easy to write the letter.
Now explain that to me, Mr. Smarty.
Because you don't have to get personal.
Oh.
All you have to do is write a very formal thank you note. That's all.
Terrible. I hate receiving formal thank you notes. So I imagine other people do, too.
All right. Make it difficult for yourself.
I will.
I was only trying to help.
Advice is no help. Action is what counts.
Then I'll leave you to yourself, and you can start on the action right away.
Oh, thank you very much.
Nothing at all. Get Mama to help you.
He's pushing Bobby around in his perambulator.
That woman. She can't let him out of her sight.
I know.
Guess you'll just have to work it out for yourself, then. I hope you haven't touched my soft lead pencils or stolen my ruler or gum eraser.
Oh, you're as fussy about your soft lead pencil as an old maid.
It is impossible for the old maid to work without them.
'Tis a poor workman who blames his tools. Oh, now where's my favorite fountain pen? David, have you stolen my favorite fountain pen? I can't write with any other.
'Tis a poor workman who blames his tools. Now get on with those thank you notes. If you get through after lunch, I'll take you for a walk.
Well, that's not much of an inducement, but it's better than none. All right. I love getting presents, but when you have to write 8 different letters about 8 different little chemises, it sort of takes the glow off.
Ungrateful.
If you're not doing anything, why don't you write a letter, dear?
Look, I'm doing something. I'm going to figure up some measurements, so quiet.
Now, let me see. Who's next on the list? Let's see. Mrs. Percival Jones, a silver spoon. Can you imagine sending a silver spoon to a 3-month-old baby? I mean, weeks. Of all the things I didn't want my son to be being born with was a silver spoon in his mouth.
No, he wasn't.
Well, he is now. Mrs. Percival Jones sent him one. Say, who is Mrs. Percival Jones, anyway?
Oh, no, some friend of Julia's, probably.
No.
My sister-in-law has many, many friends, you know.
Have you ever met Mrs. Percival Jones?
Not that I remember.
I wonder if there's a Mr. Percival Jones.
Who cares?
Mrs. Percival Jones?
Oh, shut up. Write her a letter.
Dear Mrs. Percival Jones.
Write it. Don't recite it.
Dear Mrs. Percival Jones, I just can't begin to tell you how much my husband and I
Leave me out of it. Leave me out.
How much my husband and I appreciate the darling...
The lovely.
Shut up. Appreciate the darling silver spoon you sent my son. He has been eating with it ever since the day...
Oh, that's a lie.
The whole thing is a lie. What am I supposed to say?
Tell her the truth.
I'd much rather, but I don't dare.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, here goes. Dear Mrs. Percival Jones, my husband and I want to tell you how silly we thought you were to send our 3-week-old offspring a silver spoon. Considering the times we're living in, we both believe it was a very extravagant waste of money.
You better go back to your lies, dear.
David, I am writing these letters, remember?
All right. Have it your own way. If you don't want my advice, go ahead, but do it silently.
See, Edith Dexter. Who on earth is Edith Dexter?
Oh, I know Edith Dexter. She's Philip Dexter's wife.
Oh, of course.
He's a good friend of my brother's.
Well, then why doesn't your brother write them a thank you note? They only sent it to us because of him.
What did she send?
Silver rattle. Honestly, now, this is worse than getting married.
Marriage has compensations, but this is a big nuisance.
Don't you call your son compensation?
Not yet.
Dear Mrs. Dexter.
Why don't you make this a formal one?
For instance?
Mr. and Mrs. David Naughton wish to thank you for your thoughtfulness at this time.
That sounds more like a condolence note. You have to be more cheerful about having a baby. Is it condolence or condolence? I never know.
I don't know. I'm busy.
I don't either. I'll have to look it up.
Now, how about Mr. and Mrs. David Naughton's sides are splitting about thanking you?
Oh, you're such a big help. You get back to your figures. You may be a wonderful architect, but you're a flop at thank you notes.
Now that I have proven it, maybe I'll get some peace and quiet.
You know, I wish I could learn how to write faster. I'm so slow. My mind works 8 times as fast as my hand.
And your tongue works 80 times faster than your brain.
I don't hear you. Dear Mrs. Dexter, please forgive my not writing sooner.
It's bad psychology to begin with an apology.
You are not to butt in, Buttinsky. Now I can see why wives send their husbands off to the office to get a little peace. Dear Mrs. Dexter, dear Mrs. Dexter. My dear Mrs. Dexter. Oh, how I hate this. Hooray, somebody's coming to see us.
Any excuse not to have you do your work?
You're a fine one to talk. Oh, Mrs. Cook, it's you. Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Naughton. I don't usually come ringing doorbells with this mail, but you had so many packages today, I couldn't very well stuff them all into that little mailbox of yours.
More packages?
Yep, got a heap of them, all here in this bag.
Oh.
I feel just like Santa Claus, only it's August.
Oh, they're packages for that son of mine. I had to go and have a baby.
Yeah, I hear say he's a fine boy.
Well, he's not bad. He's getting entirely too many presents, though.
Well, it'll save you money. You won't have to go and buy him all this junk yourself.
Unfortunately, it's not the kind of stuff I'd buy in the first place.
You're looking good, Mrs. Norton. Being a mother agrees with you.
Why, thanks, Mrs. Cook. We missed you while we were in New York.
We kind of missed you, too. I dropped the mail by regular and blew my horn, thinking if you was here, you'd come out. Well, it's nice to have you back.
You've no idea how nice it is to be back.
Well, as I was saying to my husband last night, Mr. Cook was suggesting that we take a little vacation and go away on a trip.
Oh?
As I was saying to him, I sure would like to go away. But when I'm away, I sure wish I was back home. Packing suitcases, unpacking them, sleeping in strange beds, registering in strange hotels, having to pay bills, and eating food that's cooked by folks who don't even know how to boil eggs.
Well,
As I was saying to Mr. Cook, if we was taking a vacation, I'd stay home here where everything is just the way I want it to be. But I don't think I'm going to be taking a vacation. You know, I kind of like this wandering around, seeing all the folk and getting all the latest news.
Claudia! Oh, that's my husband.
Your husband?
Yes.
Oh, well, you know, I'd kind of like to say hello to him. I don't think I ever met Mr. Norton. But the folks downtown say he's a mighty handsome man.
Well, some other day, but...
well, any
today,
other
Mrs.
day,
Cook,
it's
you
all
see, he's
right.
working at home on the plans for the
child, please. I'm sorry, don't just say another word. When men have work to do, the world just has to stand still.
That's right.
But let a woman set herself down to her desk. She's expected to get her work done with an interruption every 5 minutes.
That's just what
I was just saying that to Mr. Cook last night.
You were?
Yes, so I just won't say another word.
You won't?
I'll just leave all these packages in your front hall and, well... I'll be on the way. I'll see you, Mrs. Norton. I'll drop by tomorrow.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have time for a real talk then.
Thank you for coming, Mrs. Cook. It's always nice seeing you. Phew, what a tornado.
Claudia?
David, come on out here.
Are you alone?
She's gone.
Good heavens. How that woman can talk. She makes you sound like a mute.
That's why I keep her around. Look at all this stuff she brought. Packages and packages and packages. There are at least 15 of them.
And all from the same store that we've already received packages
But
from.
they're all the same things all over again. More silver spoons, more chemises, more sweet little knitted garments and blankets and... David, I don't want to seem ungrateful, but isn't it an awful waste?
Darling, you can't scold people for their trying to be attentive.
No, but it just doesn't seem right. Bobby has so much already. It's wrong for anybody these days to have more than they actually need.
I agree with you, but there are times when you have to accept gifts with good grace.
This is one of those times.
Well, you better open them so you can sit right down and finish up your thank you note.
Oh, I'll never finish them. The more I write, the more I have to write. It's interminable.
Want to open the packages here, or shall I take them inside?
Darling, you get to your work. I'll do it.
I'll help until Gertrude finishes.
Take a letter. Dear Mrs. Van Doren, thank you for your charming blue vest.
From Elizabeth Van Doren?
Another friend of Julia's?
No, she's cousin of Roger's.
You met her?
Once.
Nice?
Very.
I think any cousin of Roger's would. David,
No,
listen.
no. I'm not going to write any of them.
That's not what I was going to ask.
Oh?
Where should I put all this stuff?
Bring it up to Bobby's room. It's his.
Let him look around and see all this. He'll be so spoiled we won't be able to do a thing with him. Why, he'll think life is nothing but a bed of roses. He'll get an idea he's rich and spoiled and pampered. That's no way to begin life.
Well, suit yourself.
You agree with me, don't you?
Sure, I agree with you, but what's there to be done about it?
I'm just thinking. All those little babies, children who don't have clothes to wear, not enough food. Why should our son be born with more than he can use?
Life isn't always in balance, darling. There are those who have too much and others who have too little.
Somebody ought to do something about life then.
Who's somebody?
Me.
Oh.
I mean, I am going to do something about it.
And what's the brilliant idea that's going through your head?
It's not very brilliant. It's just that I think I'm going to wrap all these presents of Bobby's, everything I can't use, and I'm going to send them to Europe through the Red Cross or some other organization. I'm going to send them to people who need them and who have to depend upon gifts for what they need.
That would be a very fine thing to do.
Oh, there's nothing fine about it. It's just what everybody ought to do, and I think Bobby'd want to share his presents with all those little babies in the world who haven't anything.
I'd be honored if In this, you'd let me help. You're a nice girl. A nice mother for my son.
I feel better about the whole business now. We'll open all these presents, we'll take out all the cards, and then I'll write thank you notes that will be thank you notes that I really mean.
Most women carry equipment along when they go to market nowadays. A shopping bag or a carry-all on wheels makes the job of transporting groceries easier. Another help is that handy carton in which you can carry 6 bottles of Coca-Cola home. And speaking of help, it's mighty pleasant to be able to step up to the Coke cooler while you're at your food store for delicious, ice-cold refreshment. It's a wise shopper who shops refresh.
Sure was good seeing Mrs. Naughton again.
Well, now that she's back in Eastbrook, you'll probably be seeing a great deal of her.
Well, if she keeps on getting so many packages, I will.
Well, maybe it'll let up. Claudia would certainly be pleased if it did.
Well, most young folks love getting presents.
And so does Claudia, usually. But about these, she's a little embarrassed.
Yeah. Too much is too much, isn't it?
I guess that's it. I guess Claudia feels her son has plenty just having David for father.
He's a nice man, I hear say.
David, yes. You hear say right. And he has a way with youngsters, too, he has.
Other than his own?
Why, yes, indeed, as we'll find out tomorrow, Mrs. Cook.
Well, I'll be here. Maybe I'll be able to give Mrs. Cook a few pointers. See you then, Mr. King.
Right, ma'am. Every day, Monday through Friday, Claudia comes to you transcribed with the best wishes of your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. So listen again tomorrow at the same time. And now this is Joe King saying au revoir. And remember, whoever you are, whatever you do, wherever you may be, when you think of refreshment, think of Coca-Cola. For Coca-Cola makes any pause the pause that refreshes. And ice-cold Coca-Cola is everywhere. This broadcast of Claudia was supervised and directed by William Brown Maloney.
Would that we all could be as kind as Claudia and David. The original episode, Claudia, 76 years ago, August 3rd, 1948, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We told you we got comedy tomorrow. We've got westerns coming up on Monday, and that'll be Gunsmoke, Fort Laramie, Screen Director's Playhouse production of Fort Apache, starring some fella you probably heard of by the name of Wayne. Yeah, and we'll have an episode of the CBS Screen Guild Theater. Ronald Reagan, Jane Wyman, in an episode called Christmas in Connecticut. Oh, yes, and Leon Belasco is in that as well. And another episode of Claudia. And then a lot more coming up. Stay with us here. We'll have the greatest for you. Tell your friends about Classic Radio Theater. And would you do me a favor? Leave a review, 5 stars, all that stuff. Even if you can't go to classicradio.stream and buy us a copy, that's something you can do. We appreciate you listening to Classic Radio Theater. I'm Wyatt Cox.